My uncle's house was a newer build on a different part of the property, leaving the old family home empty. My grandmother, who could never sit still, had turned the old place into a small farmstead, raising chickens, ducks, and geese. Every time we visited, she'd send us home with a basket overflowing with fresh eggs. Back when my family didn't have a car, it was a hassle to bring them on the bus, but she'd insist. "They're farm fresh," she'd say. "Good for my grandson. You're studying hard. You need to grow strong." We never had the heart to refuse her, and she was right. The deep yellow yolks of those free-range eggs were worlds better than anything you could buy at a store. I used to come out to the country at least 3 times a year, for a long weekend in the fall, during summer break, and for Christmas. But since getting together with Sophia, this was my first trip back. My parents had kept up the tradition, of course. At first, my relationship with Sophie had been too new, too fragile, and I was afraid leaving would give her the wrong idea. Then, just as we found our footing, that bastard Preston Vance had crawled out of the woodwork, and I'd had to focus all my energy on helping her deal with him, missing one chance after another to visit. If it weren't for my cousin's sudden engagement, I would have found a time to bring her here soon anyway. My cousin, Cody, was a year older than me. I was 19, he was 20. "Cody, Jake." Sophia and I stared, dumbfounded, as the two big guys wrapped each other in a bear hug like long-lost brothers. Sophia shot me a suspicious look. "Husband, how many times has Jake Ramirez been out here with you?" "Once," I said, certain. And Jake, who had planned to stay for the entire summer, had fled back to the city with his tail between his legs after just 1 week. For a long time after, his short stay in the country became the stuff of nightmares for him. But apparently, that hadn't stopped him from forging an unbreakable bond with Cody. Birds of feather, I guess. In reality, Jake and Cody were cut from the same cloth. Both were the type to raise hell if you turned your back for 5 minutes, and neither had any particular love for school. Cody used to visit his aunt, my mom, in Seattle for a few days here and there. Jake would use the excuse of studying together for mutual improvement to come over and hang out with him every day. After Cody went to trade school and entered the workforce, he started saving up for a car, a house, and a wife, and his visits became less frequent. But true friendship stands the test of time and distance. As soon as Jake heard Cody was getting engaged, he knew he had to be here. A big black dog trotted out with Cody, its tail wagging a friendly welcome to the guests. As it approached, a jolt of anxiety shot through me. Afraid it might scare Sophia, I instinctively stepped in front of her. She noticed my movement, and a small smile touched her lips as she deliberately tightened her grip on my arm. Mistaking her gesture for genuine fear, I steeled myself and gave the innocent, friendly dog a quiet but firm command to back off. "Alex, the dog is so cute. Why are you being mean to it?" Sophia said, playing the part of the damsel in distress while clearly enjoying my protectiveness. I was confused. I turned my head and saw the supposedly frail girl hiding behind me, grinning innocently. She reached out and gave the big black dog a friendly pat on the head. The dog closed its eyes in pleasure, its tail wagging even more furiously. Sophia sighed dramatically. "Alex, I'm really not afraid of dogs. You don't have to be so tense." From the calm way she handled the dog, I believed her, but her fear that other day had been real. My uncle and aunt, a step behind Cody, came out to greet us warmly. "Is that Jake? Oh, I remember you. The weed puller, right? Ha ha ha. Wow, look at you. It's been years. You've grown into such a handsome young man." "Emily, Michael, get inside. Come on in." "Alex. Oh, it's been too long since I've seen my favorite nephew. And this must be Sophia." My simple, good-hearted uncle and my warm, hospitable aunt were perfectly normal as they greeted everyone, from Jake all the way to me. But when they saw Sophia, it was as if her rare, cool elegance stunned them into silence. Standing on their own front porch, my aunt and uncle suddenly seemed flustered and awkward. They knew I had a girlfriend named Sophia, and they knew her family was well off, that she was a pampered princess. A perfect match for me, they'd said. But despite all their mental preparation, seeing her in person made them realize just how poor their imaginations were. She was more beautiful than any movie star, her poise and grace effortless. You could tell in a single glance that she was no ordinary girl. Sophia's eyes curved into a smile as she greeted them politely. "Hello, Uncle." "Hello, Aunt." Her smile and her words instantly dispelled their unwarranted tension, and they ushered us all inside with bustling warmth. I squeezed Sophia's hand, a silent question. "You okay?" Sophia disliked crowds and noise. If she could, she would have stayed in her own little world forever. But for me, she was trying, really trying, to become a part of my life. She squeezed back a subtle message. "I'm okay. The big black dog seemed to like us, sticking close and wagging its tail as we walked. I pointed at him. Sophie, guess how old he is? She thought for a moment. 3. I ruffled the dog's fur. Hear that, Chocolate? The lady thinks you're still a young pup. Animals' ages weren't as easy to guess as humans. Sophia surrendered. How old is he? He's 10 this year. My grandma got him from a neighbor in the next village over. Cody, and I named him Chocolate. We were both obsessed with chocolate back then. Wow, he's that old, Sophia said, a hint of melancholy in her voice. So even he's known you longer than I have. I was momentarily speechless. Sophia's focus always landed in the most unexpected places. So what if he's known me longer? The only one I want by my side every day is you, my Sophie. I was getting good at handling this clever, mischievous girl. A few sweet words were all it took to make her heart soar. Today was definitely going to be a challenge for Sophia. She was meeting a lot of strangers, people she couldn't just ignore. There was my warm and hospitable aunt and uncle, my cousin Cody, who was as laid back as Jake, and my kind, gentle grandmother. Grandma was a special case. While everyone else was stunned by Sophia's beauty, they at least had the courtesy to rein in their astonishment. My grandmother, however, had no such filter. The moment she saw Sophia, she was completely smitten, gushing about how she looked like an angel who had come down from heaven, a perfect match for her grandson. Sophia, naturally, loved hearing that. On the surface, she was her usual poised, elegant self, but I knew that inside, she was happy. The more of my family she met, the deeper she felt her life intertwining with mine. And there was nothing she loved more than the feeling of us being bound together, completely inseparable. Out here, an engagement party meant getting both families together for a big, celebratory meal. They'd hash out the wedding details, agree on the bride's family's requests, present the rings, and that was that. Usually, the wedding wasn't far behind. After the ceremony, you were officially a married couple, starting a life together. If you were a bit young, like Cody, it wasn't unheard of to wait until you were of legal age to sign a marriage license, sometimes with a baby already in tow. Even though I was a year younger than my cousin and already had a serious girlfriend, Cody's engagement felt abrupt. We'd never even heard he was dating anyone, so the news caught everyone off guard. It turned out we weren't the only ones. My aunt and uncle were just as surprised. Cody's fiancée was a junior high classmate of his. She was pretty, and a younger, smitten Cody had worked up the courage to ask her out, only to be flatly rejected. After graduation, they went their separate ways. Then a month ago, they ran into each other by chance. Apparently, she saw some new spark in him and started pursuing him. The old saying goes, a man chasing a woman is like climbing a mountain, but a woman chasing a man is like walking through a veil. Their relationship moved at lightning speed, and soon they were talking marriage. We had gotten a late start, so it was almost noon by the time we arrived. I felt guilty for making everyone wait. But when we got there, we found several tables laden with food and drinks, and the bride's family hadn't even shown up yet. I whispered to Sophia, "Are you hungry? I can get you something to eat." She shook her head. At 12:30, the bride's family finally trickled in, a whole entourage of aunts and uncles, more than a dozen people. Cody's fiancée was indeed pretty, with perfectly applied makeup and a trendy outfit. It was rude to compare, but after seeing Sophia, anyone would find the fiancé style a bit tacky. The difference was night and day. Pitting her against Sophia was hardly fair. Girls with Sophia's combination of stunning looks and exceptional grace were one in a million. The plan, as discussed by the two families, was to have the wedding at the end of the year for a festive atmosphere. With the elders handling the serious business of Cody's marriage, the younger generation had nothing to contribute. We ate our fill and either sat on the sidelines listening to the chatter or escaped outside for some peace and quiet. Sophia and I, of course, chose the latter. Jake, who lived for drama, stayed inside. The countryside lacked the glitz of the city, but it also lacked the frantic energy that frayed your nerves. A quiet sense of stillness hung over the village. The sycamore tree outside the old family home was bare, its naked branches reaching for the sky. The tall courtyard wall of the neighboring house, which had seemed so imposing in my memory, no longer looked so high. The feeling was even stronger for Sophia. "Alex, has that wall always been this low?" Returning to this place stirred something deep within her, and her eyes grew warm. This was it. This was where her destiny and mine began. This was the moment a ray of light pierced the darkness of her life. She had dreamt of this place countless times. Once she had the power, she had wanted to come back and find her light, but she didn't know what the place was called. All she had was a faint memory of the local dialect, which suggested it was somewhere in the country's heartland. The search area was massive, and with so many people leaving rural areas to find work, abandoned houses were common. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The hollow ache of waking up from those dreams, lost and disoriented, still lingered in her soul, making her tremble. More details from her past began to surface. She had scrambled onto a truck and been taken to a strange place. She'd slipped away and just kept walking, passing a house where she stole a boy's clothes that were hanging out to dry. In a secluded spot, she changed, throwing her own designer clothes into a river. She didn't know where she was going or where she could go. She just followed the river until she collapsed on the bank. In a daze, she felt someone touching her, pawing at her. She was terrified. She would rather die in the wilderness and be eaten by wild dogs than be captured and controlled by someone again. She struggled and ran. Recalling this, a wave of fear washed over Sophia. She was lucky that fate had delivered me to her again. Otherwise, wouldn't she have been the one to single-handedly destroy the bond between us? Fate has been kind to me, she thought silently. The wind whistled in her ears. It was windier out here, and I pulled the hood of her jacket up over her head. Sophia looked at the old, moss-covered brick wall, a determined glint in her eye. Alex, I want to climb over and see if it was still the same as she remembered. I glanced at her delicate, flawless hands. Don't, I said, taking her arm. You'll scrape yourself. The wall was made of rough red brick and cement, the outer layer of paint long since weathered away. I'd scraped my own hands on it plenty of times as a kid. My princess was too precious to get hurt. I wouldn't be able to stand it. Sophia pouted. No, I want to go in. I smiled, draping an arm around her shoulders and steering her toward the gate. A rusty padlock hung from the dilapidated wooden doors. On closer inspection, Sophia saw it wasn't actually locked, just looped through the latch. I lifted it off, slid the bolt open, and made a theatrical bow. Your Highness, after you. Sophia tilted her head, staying put. I was confused for a second, then I understood. A small smile played on my lips as I gave a gentlemanly bow and offered her my hand. Satisfied, she placed her small, pale hand in mine, and I immediately clasped it tight. The family that lived here bought a house somewhere else and haven't been back in a long time, I explained. They came back once for some business and gave my grandma the key, telling her she could plant a vegetable garden in the yard. Said it was better than letting it get overgrown with weeds. So this is Grandma's garden now. She grows some cabbage, peanuts, stuff like that. Your grandma must have been very good friends with the neighbors. Yeah, she is. My grandma, my uncle, my aunt. They're all good people. The yard was just as I'd said, a small vegetable patch. Rows of greens I couldn't name grew in neat lines. We walked through the garden to the tiled roof house at the back. Inside, everything was simple and old. But compared to the chaotic mess she remembered, it was clean and tidy, as if someone still lived here. It was obvious someone came to clean it regularly. Sophia looked around, feeling like she was in a dream. Memories of her time here with me flashed through her mind like a slideshow. A smile bloomed on her face. She pointed to the spot at my feet, less than a yard from the door. Alex, we used to sleep right here. I looked down. Oh, right. An idea sparked in her mind. Is that old straw mat still around? I laughed. Sophie, are you thinking of a reenactment? Never mind that the mat is long gone. Even if it were here, no way. The ground was too cold, too hard. In the end, I dragged over 2 wooden chairs. We sat huddled together in the same spot we had all those years ago, closing our eyes to feel the memory of 2 kids hiding from the adults, keeping each other company. After about an hour, we left. We had to head back to Seattle today. Jake and I had classes on Monday. Otherwise, Grandma and the family wouldn't have let us go so easily. They would have insisted we stay for a couple more days. After leaving the neighbor's yard, I led Sophia around my grandma's old house for a bit before we started back. As we walked, a tall poplar tree came into view. Without its leaves, a bird's nest was clearly visible among the bare branches. Standing beneath, it was a 6-foot-tall figure, head tilted back, a look of pure, unadulterated longing on his face. He looked exactly like a 3-year-old eyeing a lollipop in another kid's hand. He was practically drooling. I burst out laughing. The moment he saw us, he pointed excitedly at the nest. Look, there's a bird's nest up there. I see it, I'm not blind. Are you still obsessed with stealing eggs? I teased Jake while turning to Sophia. This guy tried to climb a tree to get to a nest once. He got halfway up before his leg cramped. Jake glanced around conspiratorially and sidled up to us. Over time, he'd figure out the right way to act around my girlfriend. Once he realized Sophia wasn't as terrifying as I made her out to be, he'd gotten bolder, even daring to call me by my old nickname in front of her. Hey, Alex, Sophie, he whispered, casting another look around. I think Cody's engagement is DOA. I was stunned. What? I'm not trying to jinx him or anything. Jake quickly clarified. He's your cousin, so he's my cousin. I honestly want the best for him. It took him a moment of frantic gesturing, but he finally managed to explain. Apparently, all the wedding preparations, how much to give the bride's family as a gift, what kind of rings to buy, all the nitty-gritty details had been more or less settled. But shortly after Sophia and I left, the bride-to-be's relatives suddenly changed their tune. They demanded that my aunt and uncle promise to buy the young couple a house in the county seat, at least 1,000 square feet, within a year of the wedding. My aunt and uncle are frugal, and Cody's a hard worker, I said. They were already planning to buy a place in town eventually, so the kids could go to better schools. But my family planning it was one thing. The bride's family springing a last-minute demand was another. It left a bad taste in your mouth. Jake looked at me like I was hopelessly naive. You think this is just about a house? My aunt and uncle actually agreed to the 1-year deadline. My uncle said they had enough saved for a down payment. The parents would cover that, and the kids could handle the mortgage. But guess what the bride's family said then? Jake's eyebrows shot up in theatrical horror. They said my aunt and uncle had to buy the house in cash, in full, and, get this, put in the bride's name only. Are they playing them for idiots? I asked, astonished. Love shouldn't be transactional, but some people seem determined to drag it through the mud, right? But they said if my aunt and uncle didn't sign an agreement today, the wedding was off. It wasn't just my aunt and uncle. Even Cody's face fell. That's basically blackmail. What did the fiancé say? Please, Jake scoffed. She was right there with her family, tears in her eyes, telling Cody that if he didn't agree, it meant he didn't love her. None of us expected things to go this way. I felt bad for Cody, but a selfish part of me couldn't help but compare his situation to mine and feel a surge of gratitude for my Sophia. And then what? Sophia asked. Her interest peaked now that Jake had paused. I had to laugh, though I still felt sorry for my cousin. Sophia was treating this like primetime drama, and she was hooked. I don't know what happened after that. I was afraid my being there would make it more awkward for Cody, so I ducked out. As the three of us walked back, we saw a crowd of people gathered around our cars in front of my uncle's house, shouting. We looked it up. This SUV is worth at least $250,000, and this one, a man gestured wildly, is even more. Over $500,000. 1,000 square foot house in town is only about $300,000. If you can afford cars this expensive, is asking for a house for our kids really too much? One of the fiancé's relatives yelled indignantly. My uncle looked completely exasperated. No matter how expensive those cars are, they're not ours. So what if they're not yours? I asked around. They belong to Cody's aunt. It's only natural for an aunt to chip in for her nephew's wedding, isn't it? Sophia's voice was dangerously quiet. How can they say something so shameless with a straight face? Jake quickly agreed. Right? That's what I was thinking. They have zero shame. The relative then turned his attention to my mother, Emily. Cody's aunt, am I right or am I right? Cody's getting married. How much are you planning to contribute? Emily was speechless. The man pressed on. You people drive cars like this, you must live in a mansion, right? You're so rich. A little spare change from you would be enough for the young couple to live on. You're his aunt. You can't be stingy, or people will look down on you. I frowned, using twisted logic to emotionally blackmail my mother. Not only was I furious, but the protective instinct in Sophia flared to life. We were about to step forward when Cody, his eyes red with fury, roared, "Leave my aunt out of this. Even my own parents aren't obligated to buy me a house. You're threatening me, saying if I don't buy a house, we don't get married? Fine, then we won't get married. There are plenty of other fish in the sea. It's not like I'm going to be alone forever." My mother, Emily, finally seemed to snap out of her shock. She was usually soft-spoken and kind, but when it came to matters of principle, she never backed down. She held Cody back and, with a calm smile, addressed the bride's family. Of course, as his aunt, I can't just stand by while my nephew gets married. But as you said, Cody is my nephew. If I'm going to help, I'm going to help my nephew. And if I buy a house, it will naturally be in my nephew's name. Tell me, why would I buy a house for someone else's daughter? Her cool, logical words left them momentarily speechless. The teary-eyed bride finally spoke up. It's not that I care about the house. I just want to test if Cody was really sincere about me. Emily's voice was as smooth as silk. My dear, love is a two-way street. You want to test Cody, so Cody can test you. Fine, I'll make the decision. I'm willing to buy Cody a house. How about your family buys him a car of equal value? The woman's family immediately objected, their double standard on full display. Cody turned to my mother. And Emily, Don't worry about this. I'm not getting married. My aunt, his mother, was furious. That's right, it's off. We're not even married yet, and you're already scheming. I can't imagine what life would be like after the wedding. It's for the best. My uncle's face was dark. She's right. It's off. My grandmother stood to the side, sighing. How had such a happy day turned into this? Suddenly, my hand was empty. Sophia had let go and walked over to my grandmother, putting an arm around her shoulders and murmuring something comforting. The old woman's expression softened. Seeing that, a warmth spread through my chest. Jake made a sking sound, grinding his teeth. Dude, you are one lucky son of a bitch. Hey, I said, with a smugness designed to drive him crazy. Some guys just have all the luck. Jake looked like he wanted to punch me, but then he probably thought about Sophia, who treated me like I was made of glass, and decided against it. In the end, the farce concluded with Cody's resolute, "We're breaking up. The wedding is off," and the bride's tearful retort, "You'll regret this." The whole thing was surreal. Did the engagement really fall apart because of the cars we drove? No, it fell apart because of the bride's family's insatiable greed. She used to be so sweet. Cody lamented, clearly heartbroken. I promised her I'd give her my entire paycheck. How could she be so cruel? Jake hit the nail on the head. Cody, does she have a brother? A younger one, by a year. Cody's eyes widened in sudden realization. He'd been targeted by a classic help my brother scheme. She wanted the house for her brother's future. Damn it. He was lucky their ugly true colors had been exposed so quickly. He could only imagine the misery that awaited him otherwise. Cody threw himself into my mother's arms. "Aunt Emily, thank you." On the way back to Seattle, I was in the same $500,000 car as before, with Charles driving and Sophia beside me. Michael and Emily's $250,000 SUV had a new passenger, a dejected-looking Cody. It wasn't that an aunt was obligated to help her nephew, but that family helps family within their means. To make a clean break from his ex-fiancée, Cody didn't want to go back home and decided to find a new job. My parents convinced him to come to Seattle with them to clear his head. Sophia, ever attentive to anything concerning me, offered to arrange a job for Cody. I knew what she meant, a cushy, no-show position where he'd just collect a paycheck. It was the kind of job most people dreamed of, but I knew my cousin. As a kid, he'd been an unreliable goofball, the same kid who mistook a passed-out Sophia by the river for a frog spirit. A detail I would never, ever mention to her. But as an adult, Cody had transformed into a diligent, hard-working young man with his own pride and ambitions. He'd never accept a handout. Still, with his limited education, a serious corporate job would be out of his depth. But he was young and driven. He could learn. His future was still bright. Spoiled with the best food and care, Pudge, the abandoned infant who had fallen into a life of luxury, had grown from a palm-sized puppy into a chubby little butterball of nearly 10 pounds in 2 months. At first, Sophia had kept her distance, subtly avoiding him when he waddled over to nuzzle her. But since he'd become a furry little sphere, perhaps his persistence had finally paid off. Now, every time I saw them, she would spend the better part of the afternoon happily playing with him. If I hadn't been paying close attention to the subtle shift in her behavior toward Pudge, I might have dismissed it, but I came to a conclusion that made no sense. Sophia wasn't afraid of big dogs. She was afraid of tiny, fluffy puppies. It was completely illogical. Weren't puppies at their cutest when they were little fluff balls? Same as with human babies. Speaking of human babies, my mind wandered. When could Sophia and I have a cute baby of our own? Our kid would be adorable, naturally, with parents this good-looking. I thought about childbirth, my mind conjuring images from movies. A woman, alone and helpless in a delivery room, drenched in sweat, screaming in agony. A shiver ran down my spine. No way. We wouldn't have kids. I couldn't bear to put Sophia through that kind of pain. Everyone knew giving birth was risky. Modern medicine had reduced the danger, but it wasn't foolproof. What if Sophia had complications? Stop it. The thought was too awful. I quickly shut it down, but a chill lingered in my heart, cementing a decision. No kids. Ha ha ha, you silly boy. Sophia feinted a throw, and Pudge took off like a shot, searching the grass for a ball that wasn't there. After a fruitless search, he turned back, wagging his little tail helplessly. But the beautiful human girl before him was feeling mischievous. Not only did she not help him, she laughed at him mercilessly, turning to share his foolishness with someone else, until she realized that someone was lost in thought. What are you thinking about? You're a million miles away. I ruffled her hair, teasing Pudge again. What? You can stick up for him, she said, feigning a fierce look. Nope, I said righteously. I'm going to help you tease him. Pudge just stood there looking betrayed. What did I ever do to you people? That's more like it. When Sophia was in a good mood, she'd reward me. And when she rewarded me, I'd melt into a puddle of blissful contentment. All in all, it was a fantastic, self-perpetuating cycle. The days passed. Winter turned to spring, spring to summer. Following the timeline of my past life, Simon Shaw started using his spare time to develop a small video game. A momentous occasion like that, of course, required Jake's full participation. Cody's boba shop in downtown Seattle was thriving, with daily profits never dipping below $1,000. On its best day, well, let's not talk about its best day. Brandon Pierce, in a show of support, had ordered 10,000 cups of milk tea, crashing the system and forcing Cody to work past midnight without even finishing the order. Oh, and Walter Pierce had roped me into a major, can't-lose project in Seattle. Everything was moving in the right direction. Things were so good that I found myself wishing time would speed up so I could get that marriage license with Sophia. But sometimes, when the surface of the sea is calm for too long, it's only because a storm is brewing underneath. The day started like any other. We had lunch at the private kitchen, spent an hour tangled up in each other's arms, and then it was time for me to head back to campus. As always, Sophia insisted on walking me to the entrance, watching until I disappeared from sight before she would leave. It was one of the many small rituals she cherished. Someone walked past us, talking on their phone. Sophia and I were holding hands, lost in our own world, and didn't pay any attention to who it was. Hey, I was just wondering, is Chloe feeling any better? I felt Sophia's body go rigid. I looked at her, and her face, which had been glowing with a healthy blush just a moment ago, was now deathly pale. 1 second she was fine, the next, my head whipped around. The girl on the phone who had just walked by was someone I recognized, Jessica Vance. As if sensing my gaze, Jessica turned and gave us a slight smile. Maybe I was imagining it, but her smile seemed freighted with meaning. Before I could process it, I felt a soft touch on my cheek. Sophia, launching another sneak attack. Her eyes crinkled into a smile. Go on, husband. I reached up and touched her face. Why do you look so pale? Are you not feeling well? Do I? She touched her own cheek, feigning confusion. Maybe it's just a little cold today. Then don't wait out here. Go get in the car where it's warm. No, I want to watch you go in first. Sophie, listen to me. Fine, she relented. Bye, husband. I'll love you forever. I smiled. I'll love you forever, too. We exchanged cheesy declarations like that a dozen times a day. They were as essential as breathing. I walked a few steps and turned back. Sophia blew me a playful kiss. I walked a few more and looked again. She waved. We'd see each other again by evening, at the latest, but every time we parted, it felt like I was leaving on a long journey. This scene of a devoted girlfriend seeing her boyfriend off at the university gates had become a daily spectacle. Most students at Lakeview knew Alex Turner had a girlfriend whose beauty was otherworldly. As a result, any girl who might have had a passing crush on me would take one look at Sophia, feel utterly inadequate, and give up completely. If I ever left Sophia for someone else, they'd all think I'd lost my mind. I was distracted all afternoon, a heavy feeling weighing on my heart. Something was definitely wrong with Sophia. And then there was Jessica Vance. After the Mason Gow incident, she had kept a low profile. If we happened to cross paths, she would quickly look away, no longer trying to get my attention. But today, not only did she not avoid me, she smiled at us. And it was such a knowing, provocative smile that it left me unsettled. That's what it was, a provocation. At that moment, all my focus had been on Sophia's pale face, so I'd missed it. But thinking back now, I was sure it was intentional. What was she doing when she walked past us? She was on the phone. As for what she said, I hadn't really been listening. I had a sharp intuition that the problem lay in the content of Jessica's phone call. It sounded far-fetched. Sophia and Jessica had practically zero interaction, unless you counted the time Mason Gow had foolishly tried to cause trouble at the private kitchen. After Sophia had taken Mason down, she'd looked right at Jessica and said, with double meaning, "Trash like you needs to stay away from my husband." After my last class, I packed my things, eager to get home. At the end of the hallway, I ran into Jessica again. She stared straight at me, her eyes filled with some deep, hidden meaning. She smiled, that same unsettling smile that seemed to say she knew some great secret. "Alex Turner," she said. Normally, I would have ignored her completely. I couldn't stand gold diggers. But now, some strange impulse made me stop. I looked at her, my expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance. Jessica didn't seem to mind the obvious disdain in my eyes. As if talking to herself, she said, "Your girlfriend is so beautiful." I knew that wasn't what she really wanted to say. Get to the point. Her expression turned cryptic. "Do you really know your girlfriend at all?" I stared at her, my face a blank mask. What are you trying to say? But she just gave me another one of those meaningful smiles, said, "See you around, Junior," and disappeared into the women's restroom. I stood there, speechless. I had to admit, even though I knew she was playing me, her little game had worked. I was hooked, mostly because Sophia's reaction had been so genuinely, frighteningly abnormal. Humming a little tune, Jessica entered the restroom and saw the new balance on her banking app. She had to clamp a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. That woman had kept her word. All she had to do was pretend to make a phone call in front of Alex and his girlfriend and mention the name Chloe, and she'd been paid $10,000. It was the easiest money she'd ever made. It felt like a dream. She quickly sent a text to a specific number. "Ma'am, I just said what you told me to say to Alex in the hallway." She had even copied the exact look she was supposed to give him. There was no reply, but another notification popped up on her phone. Her account balance had changed again. This time, Jessica couldn't hold it in. A low squeal escaped her lips. Another $10,000. Rich people's money was so easy to make. She could finally buy that designer bag she'd been eyeing for months. And she wouldn't have to pinch pennies anymore. If she stuck with this generous woman, the sky was the limit. Jessica walked out of the restroom, her spirits soaring. Alex and his girlfriend were clearly not people to be trifled with. The fact that a single sentence, fed to her by that woman, could make Alex's girlfriend's face drain of all color proved one thing. That woman had Sophia completely under her thumb. Her benefactor was on a whole other level. If she hitched her wagon to that star, she'd never have to worry about money again. She suddenly felt a surge of schadenfreude. What kind of dark secret was Alex's girlfriend hiding? Why would a single name make her so terrified? Jessica would never forget the way Sophia had looked down on her, calling her trash. The humiliation had been suffocating, but she had been powerless to fight back. But things were different now. Remembering the pale, frightened look on Sophia's face, Jessica's mood became even more cheerful. Suddenly, a hand tapped her on the shoulder. Jessica turned around, annoyed to see a stranger. "Who are you?" Before she could finish, her world went black, and she crumpled to the floor. I rushed home, but Sophia wasn't there. I was told she'd been called into the office for an urgent matter. Lately, Sophia had been handing more and more of the day-to-day operations of Harlan Corp over to her brother, Ethan. It was clear she was slowly relinquishing control. She didn't care about the multi-billion-dollar company. She had her own money, more than she could ever spend. She only went in for major decisions. Most days, she was at home arranging flowers, reading, managing her own independent business empire, or overseeing the project I was working on with Walter Pierce. Involving herself in every aspect of my life gave her a profound sense of security. But right now, she wasn't at the office. She had lied to me. In a dimly lit room, she silently picked up a bottle of red wine and poured its entire contents over the face of the girl lying at her feet. The girl slowly came to, her eyes meeting Sophia's cold, merciless gaze. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably. "Who told you to mention the name Chloe in front of me?" Sophia asked, her voice like ice. Jessica was terrified. They had grabbed her right on the Lakeview campus. That meant this girl's power was absolute, her reach limitless, far more terrifying than she had imagined. Jessica stammered, about to confess, when she remembered what the woman had told her. "Don't be afraid. I'm here. No one can touch you." As if she'd found her courage, Jessica quickly composed herself. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? This is kidnapping. You're breaking the law." A barely audible laugh escaped Sophia's lips, mocking Jessica's naivete. The laugh enraged Jessica. It felt just like that day when Sophia had called her trash. But this wasn't then. She was no longer that weak girl who couldn't fight back. Jessica let out a sharp laugh. "Miss Reed, who exactly is Chloe? Why are you so terrified of hearing her name? If Alex knew what you did to her, do you think he would still love you?" Sophia was silent for a long moment, then she smiled. "I think I know her game now," she murmured to herself. "So unoriginal." She stood up, her voice weary. "Because of trash like you, my husband came home and couldn't see me right away. You all deserve to die." As the last word fell, sharp and heavy, a violent shiver ran down Jessica's spine. Her hands and feet weren't tied. No one was stopping her. She scrambled to her feet and ran out of the room. She had to call the police. No, first, she had to call the woman, tell her what had just happened. The woman would know how to punish this horrible, entitled princess. And that despicable Alex Turner. He was nothing but a kept man, pretending to be so righteous. The woman had said the next step was to ruin both of them. After that, she would get a huge sum of money, enough to fulfill her dream of moving abroad. Not seeing Sophia had magnified my anxiety tenfold. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. especially when I thought of her pale face. I knew my panic was exactly what Jessica and her master wanted, but I couldn't stop worrying about Sophia. Just as I was about to break down and call her, my phone rang. An unknown number. Normally, I would have rejected it, but it was a local Seattle area code. I answered. There was no hello or any other typical greeting. Just a woman's voice, calm with a hint of mocking amusement. Do you know what your girlfriend, Sophia, is doing right now? I froze. She's bullying a girl named Jessica Vance. You know her, right? A sophomore at Lakeview. I heard she used to have a crush on you. Who is this? I cut in, my voice cold. The woman ignored me, sighing dramatically. Just like she used to bully Chloe. I suppose it makes sense. She's so powerful now. She can crush anyone she wants. Chloe. I vaguely remember Jessica saying that name in her phone. So Sophia's drastic change in expression was connected to that name. The woman's voice was haunting. Will Jessica Vance become another Chloe? Alex, I'm truly curious. Will you still stand by Sophia, knowing her hands are stained with blood? I will never leave her. I shot back. But you, why are you hiding in the shadows? Are you afraid of the light? The woman's voice grew even colder. Such a beautiful, vibrant girl. She had such a bright future ahead of her. What a pity she won't see tomorrow's sun. University Avenue, number 32. Come quickly. The line went dead. My heart hammered against my ribs. What did she mean? What did she mean by that? Was she saying Sophia was going to kill Jessica? Impossible. Jessica wasn't worth it. Besides, Sophia had promised me she wouldn't do anything reckless. We were so happy. Sophia was too smart, too rational to destroy our happiness with her own hands. I knew the woman's call was designed to make me lose my composure, so I forced myself to stay calm. The first thing I did was call Sophia. To my relief, she picked up almost immediately. Alex. Crash. A deafening noise exploded through the phone, cutting Sophia's voice off midword. At the same time, my heart stopped. I stared blankly at my phone, now filled with the sound of screaming and chaos, my mind numb. Why hadn't it occurred to me that the girl the woman was talking about was Sophia? Blood. So much blood. Sophia stared at the scene before her, frozen, until Charles shielded her eyes and pulled her away. It was only then that she remembered she was still on the phone with me. Amid the chaos, she yelled my name into the phone several times, but there was no response. The entire Reed mansion was in an uproar. They didn't know what had happened. All they heard was Mr. Turner scream, Sophia, and then tumble down the grand staircase from the second floor. It nearly scared them to death. If anything happened to him, how would they ever explain it to Miss Sophia? When I opened my eyes, the first thing I felt was a soft, gentle hand on my face, a touch that refused to leave. The warmth from that palm calmed me. Is that my Sophie? Thank God. She was okay. My vision slowly cleared, and Sophia's face came into focus. I stared at her for a moment. You've been crying? No, I haven't, she said, her voice betraying her. A sob caught in her throat. Alex, if anything had happened to you, I wouldn't want to live anymore. Don't say that. We're both going to live to be 100. The words sent a chill down my spine because I knew she meant it. I had a few scrapes and a small cut on my forehead. The doctor said I was fine, but Sophia, unconvinced, insisted on a full battery of tests. Only after the results confirmed I was completely okay did she relax, refusing to leave my side for a second, making sure she was the first thing I saw when I woke up. Now that the tension had broken, waves of delayed fear washed over her. Tears streamed down her face, as if she were trying to cry a lifetime's worth in one go. Don't cry, I'm okay, see? I panicked, wanted to pull her into my arms and comfort her, but my whole body ached. I couldn't even sit up. I cursed myself internally. You fell down a flight of stairs, that's it. Why are you so fragile? I swore to myself that I wouldn't be lazy anymore. I had to get stronger to build a body that could protect my girl. Then, I remembered. Sophie, what was that crash on the phone? Sophia froze, her eyes welling up again. You thought something happened to me, and that's why you fell? I'd heard he'd screamed her name right before he fell. Oh God. I wanted to make up an excuse to avoid sounding like a fool, but Sophia was too smart. I couldn't lie to her. It's me we're talking about, she said softly. Of course nothing would happen to me. You forget I have Charles and the others? It's impossible for me to get hurt. I knew Charles and her security team were always with her, but they were human, not gods. Unexpected things could happen. I remembered that soul-shattering crash. It had sounded like a body hitting a speeding car. Sophia was quiet for a long time before she finally said, that sophomore girl, Jessica Vance. The name hit me like a jolt. What happened to her? Sophia gave me a strange look. Alex, you seem very worried about her. I instinctively denied it. I'm not worried about her. Why would I be worried about her? That's right, Alex. Why would you be? Sophia's gaze was sharp, boring into me as if trying to see into my very soul. The moment I say her name, you look incredibly tense, and you say you're not worried about her. I sighed. I could be absolutely certain that Sophia was jealous again. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I had finally figured it out. Sophia's jealousy knew no bounds. Well, except for my parents. She was jealous of anyone, young or old, ugly or beautiful, male or female, and apparently any species who got close to me. She was a walking, talking vat of vinegar. Being watched so intensely could be suffocating. 8 out of 10 guys would find it unbearable and run. The other 2 were either idiots or just too deeply in love. I was in the latter category. I had long since grown accustomed to our dynamic. I had softened her sharp edges, and she, in turn, had tempered my fierce need for freedom. As an integral part of her world, I was used to her possessiveness. Maybe, from another perspective, my pride had finally surrendered, and I had been tamed by her. Whatever it was, I was here willingly. Sophie, I'm really not worried about her, I said, my voice soft and pleading, a hint of a whine creeping in. I swear to God, You don't have to swear. She cut me off. I believe you. I blinked, stunned that I'd been let off the hook so easily. Sophie, you're the best. I made a mental note. She was a sucker for it when I acted cute. I could use that in the future. Sophia's gaze fell on the white gauze taped to my forehead. Even with a bandage, my husband was devastatingly handsome. Thank God he was okay. If he wasn't, I couldn't imagine what she might have done. A small, guilty voice whispered from the depths of her heart. No, I'm not the best at all. That girl, Jessica Vance, she's dead. I froze. The woman's words echoed in my head. Such a beautiful, vibrant girl. What a pity she won't see tomorrow's sun. It hadn't been a threat. It had been a prophecy. My stunned silence lasted far longer than what would be normal for hearing about the death of a casual acquaintance. The color drained from my face, leaving me pale and shaken. I tried to speak, but my throat was painfully dry. I, who was always so calm and composed, didn't even notice that my hands were trembling. But even in that state, I remembered what was most important. Sophie. I stammered, my words a jumbled mess. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not feeling sorry for her, even though it is a tragedy. Sophie, I believe you, Sophie. I know this had nothing to do with you. Sophia stared at me, dumbfounded. A small, tight smile pulled at her lips. Of course it had nothing to do with me. Every single second of my life is so happy right now. Why would I risk that for someone like her? Then, as if a thought suddenly struck her, she grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Why? Why would you say that? Did someone say something to you? I sighed. My girlfriend was just too damn smart. Before I called you, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a woman. I recounted the conversation, the memory making my injured head throb. By the time I finished, Sophia's body was ramrod straight, her face so dark it looked like it could drip ink. So, not only had she paid off Jessica Vance, but the woman had entered the ring herself. I squeezed her hand worriedly. It was as cold as ice. Sophia's expression smoothed out, and she gently but firmly pushed me back against the pillows, tucking my hands under the warm blanket. She leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to my lips. Don't worry, I can handle this. What you need to do right now is rest. Also, I'm confiscating your phone. I don't want you accidentally picking up any more calls from people with bad intentions. They barely have to do anything, and you end up knocking yourself out. Sophie, I can't sleep. If you don't listen, I'm calling your parents and telling them you're in the hospital. I shut my mouth. Under Sophia's threat, I behaved. I closed my eyes, then opened them 2 seconds later. She was there. 2 more seconds, she was still there. Pfft. Sophia couldn't help but laugh, reaching out to stroke my cheek affectionately. Go ahead and sleep. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here with you. But I can't sleep, I reasoned. Put yourself in my shoes. If it were you, could you sleep? Sophia considered it, then answered honestly, no, I couldn't. Our eyes met. After a long moment, she sighed in defeat. Fine, don't sleep, but you have to promise to lie still. It was impossible for us to pretend nothing had happened. This time, a life had been lost. Jessica Vance may have deserved what was coming to her, but objectively speaking, her crimes didn't warrant death. This crisis, I felt, was even more menacing than the one with Preston Vance. Not because the person behind it was more capable, but because she moved so quickly, so decisively, leaving no time for drawn-out schemes. I couldn't wrap my head around Sophia's biological mother. What did she want? What kind of mother pushes her own child to the brink of destruction? Even if you couldn't give your child the world, you at least wanted them to be happy. I guess growing up with open-minded parents in a warm, loving home made it impossible for me to imagine the hell some kids endured with controlling, twisted parents. Sophia's stories had left me breathless, but I could never truly feel the depths of her loneliness and despair. I took her hand, gently rubbing it with my thumb. She needed me right now, even if I was a weakling. Seriously, I could barely remember how I'd managed to fall down the stairs. It was a black mark on my life's record. The terror of thinking I'd lost her still echoed inside me, making it impossible to close my eyes. I just wanted to look at her. I've never met her. I don't understand her. Why is she doing this? Sophia's mother wasn't a first-time offender. She had been on the same side as Preston Vance. His actions against Sophia were, in effect, her actions. But unlike before, when she hid in the shadows, this time she had called me directly. Although I couldn't be 100% certain, my gut told me with 90% confidence it was her. She was like a cornered animal, making a desperate final lunge. Unlike Preston's calculated moves, her goal was to shatter Sophia with a single blow. It was clear that her unpredictability made her far more dangerous, far more insane. To call her a complete lunatic wouldn't be an exaggeration. But still, I just didn't get it. How could a mother harbor such intense malice for her own child? Sophia lowered her head, brushing her lips against the back of my hand that was holding hers. She let out a soft, contemptuous scoff, her disdain for the woman who brought her into this world absolute. She's sick. Jessica Vance's death is definitely connected to her, I said, the realization dawning on me and sending a chill through my body. How else could she have so accurately predicted her death? She wasn't a psychic. The thought jolted Sophia. When I had woken up and recounted the phone call word for word, she had been so consumed with fury over my injury that she hadn't considered that angle. It was rare for Sophia to lose her composure, but the few times she had, it was always because of me. Guilt washed over her again, so intense it was hard to breathe. It's my fault. I knew she was a lunatic. I should have been prepared. This is not your fault, I said firmly. I had told her before. Deep down, Sophia was soft-hearted. After Preston fell, Catherine was left without her shield. If Sophia had wanted to cut the weeds and pull the roots, it would have been easy. But she didn't. All she ever wanted was to live her own quiet life. For someone as vengeful as she could be, her choice to let Catherine go was likely due to that tiny, almost negligible thread of kinship. But Catherine just kept pushing again and again. I felt a surge of anger and frustration on Sophia's behalf. I thought that with time, she might change, Sophia said, her voice laced with bitterness. But she's as arrogant and self-righteous as ever. No wonder she couldn't even keep a man. Serves her right. Suddenly, she looked at me, her gaze intense. Alex, I didn't kill Chloe. I froze. As much as I had been dying to know who Chloe was, I had forced myself not to ask. I could sense that the name was a taboo, a wound I didn't want to reopen for her. The woman on the phone had said Sophia killed Chloe and would kill Jessica Vance. It connected back to that paper airplane I never got to read, the one that said her hands were stained with blood. So this was what it referred to. But I always felt like she died because of me, Sophia whispered. If we hadn't run out, she would have been fine. The despair of her childhood surfaced on her face, crossing the long river of time. But just as quickly, she suppressed it. She didn't want me to see her like this. It was too late. I had already seen it. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. Chloe was the daughter of a housekeeper who worked for a family nearby. The homeowners were kind, and since Chloe was a quiet, well-behaved child, her mother would bring her to work during the holidays. With no one else to play with, Chloe would wander outside and eventually met Sophia, who often sat alone on her front steps, lost in thought. Chloe's cheerful energy slowly chipped away at Sophia's quiet, introverted shell, and the two became best friends. Whenever Chloe's mother came to work, she would run over to play with Sophia. Catherine, of course, couldn't tolerate Sophia wasting time with a stray. She would harshly scold and chase Chloe away, forcing the two girls to take their friendship underground. Their bond was forged in difficulty, which only made it stronger. Catherine wasn't home all the time, and the housekeeper sometimes grew careless. Sophia remembered the day was hot and sunny. Chloe came running to find her, drenched in sweat. Her little face was flushed, her eyes brighter than ever. She leaned in conspiratorially, and like she was presenting a precious treasure, carefully revealed what she was hiding in her arms. It was a palm-sized, fluffy puppy, its eyes barely open. At this, my own eyes widened. The mystery that had been plaguing me for so long was about to be solved. That day, with Catherine out of the house and the housekeeper napping, Sophia held the puppy, which she adored, and snuck out to play with Chloe. Chloe's carefree laughter, the puppy's soft whimpers, and that fleeting taste of freedom ignited a long-suppressed wildness in her. For the first time, she let herself go. She didn't care how long she was out. The worst that could happen was being forced to kneel or skip a meal when she got back. Compared to the joy she felt in that moment, it was nothing. She was used to it. But why did she have to go back and face that woman's dead-eyed stare at all? Couldn't she just not? A question suddenly sparked in young Sophia's mind. Once the thought took hold, the seeds of rebellion quickly took root and sprouted. Run, run far away, to a place where that woman could never find her. If she missed her grandmother, she could sneak back. Staying there didn't mean she could see her grandmother every day anyway. Chloe was so excited she was squinting. Come to my house. My mom is taking me to our hometown tomorrow for a wedding. If you don't want to come back, I won't either. We can go to school together every day, play together every day. The two innocent little girls chattered away, dreaming of their future. Chloe was leading Sophia to find her mother when she spotted some bright pink balloons on the road. She let go of Sophia's hand to pick them up. Just as she bent down, a car came speeding toward them. Sophia stood frozen on the side of the road, watching as Chloe's small body was flung into the air like an autumn leaf, tracing a terrible arc before landing with a sickening thud. In her arms, the soft puppy licked her hand comfortingly. Amid the sound of Chloe's mother's heart-wrenching screams, Catherine led her home. That night, in a daze, she saw the puppy lying on the floor, a mangled, bloody mess. Its tiny body twitched, its dark eyes staring at her helplessly. You killed them, Catherine told her. And she believed it. I killed them. If she hadn't been so desperate for freedom, if she hadn't played with Chloe for so long, Chloe would have gone to find her mother sooner and wouldn't have been hit by a car while picking up balloons. If she hadn't brought the puppy home, the housekeeper would never have mistaken it for a rat and crushed it to death. She was a monster. From that day on, Sophia was obedient. She never snuck out again, because she was a curse. She brought misfortune to others. Later, she understood that it was just another one of that woman's despicable methods of control. But the name Chloe and the image of the puppy's helpless eyes were seared into her very bones, becoming a taboo she couldn't bear to revisit. My fingernails dug into my palms. That twisted woman, just to regain control, had been willing to inflict such a deep and lasting wound on Sophia. I held her tighter, repeating over and over, Sophie, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault, she murmured, her voice slowly steadying. You're right. It really wasn't my fault. In the warmth of my arms, her gaze became firm. My husband was right. She had been too soft. She thought they could go their separate ways, so she hadn't wanted to waste her precious time on that woman. But that woman had challenged her limits, time and again. Did she really think Sophia cared about some laughable debt of gratitude for being brought into this world? Jessica Vance's death caused a huge stir at Lakeview University. The official story was a crime of passion. A promising student whose heart she had broken had become unhinged. Consumed by hatred, he had lain in wait near campus and run her down with his car. The case was simple and clear-cut. Only a few knew the truth, that Jessica had died because of her own greed and as a pawn in a terrifying conspiracy. After my warning, Sophia even began to suspect that the deaths of Chloe and the puppy had been no accident. It was horrifying. The more I learned, the more my heart ached for her. With a mother that monstrous, how had she survived her childhood? If it were me, I would have gone insane. Perhaps triggered by my injury, Sophia became even more attached to me. 24 hours a day, she was by my side. She would wake up in my arms, give me a kiss, and whisper, "Good morning, husband." We would get ready together, eat breakfast together, and then ride in Arthur Lowe's car to campus together. Yes, you read that right. Together. Whenever Sophia appeared on campus, she was the main event. A non-student casually showing up on campus, in the library, even in classrooms, from the university president down to the security guards, everyone turned a blind eye. Occasionally, a professor, on a whim, would even call on the distinguished guest to answer a question. Miraculously, Sophia always gave a perfect answer. Not only was Alex Turner's girlfriend a super-rich heiress, she was also a bona fide genius. They were a perfect pairing of brains and beauty, a match made in heaven. It was enough to make anyone envious. Even those who had harbored secret crushes on me, who had sourly dismissed Sophia as someone who just got lucky in the birth lottery, were now completely won over. I hadn't let my relationship with Sophia distract me from my studies. In my past life, her imprisonment of me had ruined my college career. After I was free, I had to settle for night school, eventually clawing my way to a modest level of success through sheer intelligence and grit. Reborn in this life, I was determined to correct all my past regrets, and that included my education. My reputation as a top student had followed me from elementary school all the way to university. I was earning my half of the power couple title. For the record, aside from a few insiders, most people still didn't know about Sophia's connection to the Harlan family. Not that she needed their name to enhance her own status. Like me, she remained a figure of mystery in most people's eyes. On days when I didn't have class, Sophia would join me in the library. The corner table by the window was our designated spot. No one dared to take it. Her ability to command such respect at Lakeview was, of course, thanks to her financial power. She had donated 2 entire buildings to the new campus expansion project. Speaking of donations, one couldn't forget the single building donated by the Gow family. Mason Gow was still at Lakeview, but he was a changed man. The arrogant, money-flashing playboy was gone, replaced by a quiet student who went to class and kept to himself. If he accidentally ran into me, he would avoid me if he could. If he couldn't, he would force a smile and call me bro. Sometimes I thought that Sophia's presence, which had inadvertently set a spoiled brat on the right path, was an unexpected and ironic good deed. Before I met Catherine, I had tried to picture her. People's faces often reflect their souls, so no matter how I imagined her, her features were always shadowed by a dark, sinister aura. When I actually saw her, before I knew who she was, I felt nothing. She was just another customer at Starbright Market. My eyes swept over her for a fraction of a second and moved on. We were 2 strangers who had brushed past each other. If we met again, I wouldn't remember her. Or perhaps we would never meet again. Just another passerby who didn't even qualify to create a ripple on the lake of my life. I grabbed a bottle of water from a cooler and twisted the cap off, taking a long drink. At Starbright Market, I enjoyed a perk most people only dream of. I could have anything I wanted for free. I could walk out with the entire store, and the owners wouldn't ask for a dime. Of course, I would never do that unless I'd completely lost my mind. My parents, the Reed Mansion, and the private kitchen all had their own supply chains. We never needed to shop here. I usually just grabbed a water or a carton of milk, acting as if I were in my own home. I was comfortable, and everyone else was comfortable with it. Our family's bond wouldn't be tainted by business. I turned ahead toward the checkout counter, where Simon Shaw was working today. Just then, I heard the sharp tear of plastic behind me. I glanced back instinctively. A woman, who had been standing in front of a shelf, as if struggling to choose between 2 products, was holding a chocolate bar. She had just ripped the wrapper open and put a piece in her mouth. I winced. Had she seen me open my drink and thought that was just how things were done here? A pang of regret hit me. I really needed to be more careful. If everyone started doing this, it would be chaos. The woman stood there in front of the shelf, eating, making no move to pay. It seemed entirely possible she would finish the bar, toss the empty wrapper, and walk out. The world was a big place, full of all kinds of people. From her appearance, she didn't look like she was short on cash, but you could never tell. Being poor didn't mean you lacked pride, and being rich didn't mean you wouldn't stoop to petty theft. What I found strange was her nonchalance. The aisles were narrow. When I had come over to get my water, she had glanced at me indifferently. Out of reflex, I looked back, but she had already turned away. I'd given her back a passing glance and thought no more of it. But now her behavior was just too odd, too suspicious. So suspicious, in fact, that I got the strange feeling she was deliberately acting this way to get my attention. It was probably just my imagination, but that was the distinct impression I had. The woman devoured the chocolate bar in large, quick bites. Then, she reached for another one on the shelf. I wasn't one to meddle in other people's business. After everything I'd been through, my sense of civic duty was a bit lacking. If it didn't concern me, I stayed out of it. But this was happening in Jake's family store. This wasn't someone else's business. I peeked around the end of the aisle and caught the eye of Jake's mom, Maria, who was chatting with Simon. We knew each other so well that a simple look was enough. Maria started walking over. My job done, I prepared to leave. At that exact moment, the woman chewing chocolate slowly turned around. I saw her face. Maria arrived at the same time. For 2 seconds, an eerie silence hung in the air. Maria, oblivious, saw the wrapper in the woman's hand and put on a polite, professional smile. "Excuse me, ma'am. Our store policy is to pay for items before consuming them. I apologize for any inconvenience. Of course, it's no problem this time. We can just scan the wrapper at the register, just for future reference." The woman let out a barely audible scoff, dripping with disdain. She pointed at me. "Playing favorites, are we? Then why is he allowed to?" Maria was taken aback. This woman was actually trying to turn around on her. She recovered quickly. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but he's family. He doesn't need to pay." "Family," the woman repeated slowly, as if she had just found the perfect justification for her actions. Oh, if he's family, then so am I. Maria just blinked, clearly baffled by her logic. She glanced uncertainly between me and the woman, who now had a faint smile playing on her lips. Finally, the woman looked at me. Isn't that right, Alex? Maria was surprised. So I knew her? Oh, it was all a misunderstanding. But wait, even if I knew her, she should still pay. Who just takes things from a store without paying and then brazenly claims to be family? Talk about thick-skinned. I wasn't like that. So this woman had to be shamelessly trying to use her connection to me. After all, the Alex of today was not the Alex of the past. But still, something felt off. Maria's mind was a mess. The only thing she knew for sure was that I was in some kind of trouble. So she stayed put. I gave her a reassuring smile. It's okay, Aunt Maria. You can go back to what you were doing. She hesitated, then spotted another customer browsing a nearby shelf. Relieved, she nodded and walked away. I maintained my composure. Despite the shock, on the surface, I was a mask of calm. It had only been 3 days since Jessica Vance's death. Nowhere in Seattle was safe from Sophia. No one could hide from her, not even the elusive Catherine. I didn't know if it was because she no longer had Preston Vance to help her plan flawlessly, or if she was just tired of hiding. But this time, Sophia had found her with almost no effort at all. But before Sophia could go to her, she had come to us. Suddenly, several more customers entered the store, browsing the shelves near us. I had to suppress a laugh. Sophie, you're overdoing it. I was a strong young man. Surely I could handle one woman on my own. But then I reconsidered. Catherine was no ordinary woman. She was the one who had used a pawn to kill Jessica Vance. I still couldn't quite figure out why she had wanted Jessica dead. Once Jessica had served her purpose, she could have just been discarded. Why go to the trouble of killing her? Then I realized how foolish I was being. I was trying to apply the logic of a sane person to the actions of a madwoman. By having Jessica die right in front of Sophia, was she trying to trigger the memory of Chloe's death, to resurrect her deepest fears? Or maybe it was just a simple, brutal message to Sophia, a demonstration of her own ruthlessness. On the surface, the Starbright market hummed along like any other Tuesday, but an undercurrent of tension was so thick that even the normally oblivious Maria Ramirez picked up on it. She sidled up to the checkout counter, leaning in to whisper to Simon. Simon, honey, am I crazy? Or is Alex in some kind of trouble? Simon figured she could drop the am I crazy part. Alex was definitely in trouble. It was just like Jake always said, being rich wasn't all it was cracked up to be. If Brandon Pierce hadn't been born lucky, he'd have been ransomed and dumped in a ditch years ago. Now, he couldn't go anywhere without 2 plain-faced bodyguards melting into the background behind him. The once rebellious kid who craved freedom had learned his lesson, trading a chunk of that liberty for the simple privilege of staying alive. Freedom or life? He was a simple man. He chose life. Alex Turner was in the same boat. Someone was always watching him. Usually, it was a stoic, powerfully built man Alex called Mr. Lowe. At first, it had unnerved Simon, feeling like he was constantly under surveillance. But Arthur Lowe wasn't like the bodyguards in movies, all stern-faced and glued to Alex's side. He had a gift for keeping Alex in his line of sight, while reducing his own presence to that of a background character in a video game. And since Simon knew his friendship with Alex was genuine and he'd never dream of hurting him, he decided he had nothing to fear. Besides, in a city plastered with security cameras, you were on film the moment you stepped outside anyway. Thinking of it that way, Simon had made his peace with it. When Alex had walked in, Mr. Lowe had followed. But now a new group of customers had trickled in, a mix of students and professionals by the looks of them. A closer inspection revealed a common thread. They were all men. And whether they were built like linebackers or looked like mild-mannered accountants, they all carried themselves with an air of coiled readiness. Maria's voice was tight with anxiety. Should we call the police? Simon managed a faint smile. I don't think that'll be necessary. Hearing his calm tone, Maria wondered if she was overreacting. This was Sophia Reed's world, after all. The entire city of Seattle was her playground. Would she really let someone bully her boyfriend on her own turf? Especially a woman who, at first glance, didn't seem like much of a threat. Still, she couldn't help muttering, I wish that rascal of mine and his father were here. The 2 Ramirez men were out scouting locations for a new market. Meanwhile, the atmosphere around Alex was growing stranger by the second. Objectively speaking, Sophia didn't look much like Catherine, though it was undeniable that the woman, now in her 40s, still possessed a striking, classical beauty. Sophia was one of those lucky children who had inherited the best genes from both parents, a perfect blend of looks and intelligence. But even though the resemblance wasn't obvious, the moment Alex's eyes focused on Catherine's face, he knew exactly who she was. Sophia was the child she had carried for 9 months. There were traces, however faint, in her features and aura. Alex's sharp senses had caught them instantly. Maria, on the other hand, saw nothing. Of course, it could also be that Alex had been mentally preparing for this meeting for a long time. So when a suspicious woman who faintly resembled Sophia appeared, he could make the connection immediately. Catherine's expression was a mask of cold indifference, her eyes holding the sharp, dismissive arrogance of someone used to looking down on the world. She raked her gaze over Alex, her stare a physical assault. Under that hostile scrutiny, Alex met her eyes and offered a polite, detached smile. "Ma'am, I think you have me mistaken for someone else. I don't know you." Catherine flinched, almost imperceptibly. She had expected her formidable presence to be enough to intimidate a wet-behind-the-ears kid like Alex. Yet here he was, staring right back at her, and she was certain he knew who she was, completely unfazed. What gave him that confidence? Was it her daughter, that disobedient child who thought her wings had grown in? A daughter whose wings, Catherine had to admit, had indeed grown strong. She scanned him again, her lip curling in a faint sneer. "It seems you've gotten quite comfortable living off her." The words were more than rude. They were a calculated humiliation. "She's trying to provoke me," Alex told himself. The thought was more absurd than infuriating. His smile didn't waver. "Oh, how did you know I had a delicious, soft-cooked porridge for lunch?" Catherine was speechless. "And ma'am, trying to get friendly with me won't work. You still have to pay for that chocolate bar you ate." "Alex Turner," she hissed, dropping the charade. "Stop playing dumb with me." Alex sighed. The woman was truly unhinged. She had marched up to him, and now she was accusing him of playing games. What game was he supposed to be playing? He felt a pang of sorrow for Sophia. He let out a soft laugh, his posture relaxed. "All right then, what is it you want to say to me? Or perhaps, what is it you want to do to me?" He ticked off the possibilities on his fingers. "Tell me to leave Sophia? You don't have the right to make demands of me, and I will never leave her." He paused, his smile turning icy. "As for doing something to me, are you planning a repeat performance? Hire someone to do your dirty work, like you did with Jessica Vance." At the calm mention of Jessica's true cause of death, a muscle in Catherine's brow twitched violently before settling. Then, astonishingly, she smiled back at him, an elegant, chilling curve of her lips. She was completely composed, her calmness a form of taunt. "That's right, I hired a killer. What are you going to do about it?" And beneath that, a veiled threat. "Are you scared?" Arrogant and repulsive. In just a few short exchanges, Alex realized this woman was something else. A powerful, unsettling energy radiated from her slender frame. But no matter how strong she was no match for Sophia, who had long since surpassed her. Having survived Sophia's intense presence in his past life, facing her mother felt like staring down a wolf after having already met the dragon. Suddenly, Catherine leaned in close. Mr. Lowe, who had been standing a yard away, instantly closed the distance, his eyes fixed on her in a hard stare. Catherine froze for a second, then her shoulders began to shake. The shaking grew, and soon she was laughing, a wild, unhinged sound that threatened to bring tears to her eyes. She was laughing at Alex. At the counter, Maria and Simon exchanged wide-eyed glances. The other employees, sensing the escalating drama, hovered uncertainly. Maria waved them out of the store, shooing Simon along with them. This was not their circus. The woman suppressed, crazed laughter was deeply unsettling. Had a local mental asylum forgotten to lock its doors? Alex watched her, his expression serene. "Ma'am, you should laugh all you want while you still can. Once you're in prison waiting for a lethal injection, you might not feel much like laughing." Catherine's laughter cut off abruptly. "What did you say, boy?" she asked, her tone once again composed, as if she thought he was bluffing. Seeing Catherine's mocking, derisive expression, as if he were nothing more than a clown, Alex felt no anger. Just as when she'd accused him of being a kept man, his heart remained a placid lake. "You went to great lengths to make me believe Sophia's hands were stained with blood," he said softly. "But the one with blood on her hands is you. That carefree little girl all those years ago. You were the one who had someone run her down with a car, weren't you?" The carefree little girl was, of course, Chloe. Catherine's composure finally cracked. This boy knew about Sophia's deepest trauma. Did that mean Sophia had willingly told him? That she had finally moved past the shadow of Chloe's death? That was not good news. It meant she had lost one of her key levers of control over her daughter. Alex turned to leave. He had wasted enough time on this woman. He needed to get back to Sophia. Passing the register, He spoke quietly to Maria Ramirez. "Mrs. Ramirez, please don't worry about this. We'll handle it." Maria nodded, understanding. As curious as she was, now was not the time for questions. Nothing was more important than getting this boy back to Sophia. That was a truth practically encoded in their DNA. The bond those two shared was something to be envied. She sighed, a familiar thought creeping in. If only her own rascal could find a girl who loved him that sincerely. She cut the thought short. That was dangerously close to daydreaming. Even as Alex stepped over the threshold of the Starbright Market, he could feel Catherine's cold, hateful gaze boring into his back. In the afternoon, Sophia, feeling tired from her period, had gone upstairs to lie down. Alex had only come over to grab a bottle of water and chat with Maria for a moment. He never intended to be away from her for long. The bed in the room set aside for him at the private kitchen was a marvel of comfort. The mattress alone had cost $250,000. Sophia, lying on it, was restless, her limbs fidgety. These days, they were inseparable. If he was out of her sight for even a moment, an ache bloomed in her chest. Unable to wait any longer, she got up. Just as she opened the door to the main area, she saw Alex striding toward her. "What took you so long?" she complained, her tone more affectionate than annoyed. Alex's gaze was deep and steady. Something came up. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. After lunch, the chef and Mrs. Peterson had gone home for the day, leaving the small restaurant as their private sanctuary. Sophia turned and wrapped her arms around him. Alex bent down, sliding one arm under her knees, and lifted her effortlessly. He carried her up the stairs, placed her gently on the bed, and took off her shoes, then his own. He lay down beside her, and she rested her head on his arm, the two of them facing each other in a warm embrace. "Time for a nap, husband," she murmured. Alex obediently closed his eyes. With the blackout curtains drawn, the room was dim and perfect for sleeping the day away. A short while later, Alex quietly opened his eyes. Sophia wasn't asleep. Her unfocused gaze was resting on the collar of his shirt. Seeing that he wasn't behaving, she leaned in and gave his neck a soft bite. It didn't hurt. It was just below his collar, a place visible to others, and Sophia would never leave an incriminating mark in such an obvious spot. Other, more hidden places, however, were fair game. But she was merciful, and the light bite softened into a lingering, suggestive kiss. Alex's Adam's apple bobbed. Sophia stiffened, then tried to fix it, instinctively blowing gently on the spot. The warm puff of air sent a visible wave of goosebumps across his skin. Panicked, she reached out and touched the place she had just kissed, trying to soothe away the tingling sensation that, if left unchecked, would surely engulf him in flames. What she didn't realize was that the touch of her soft, delicate hand had an equally potent effect. Alex grabbed her hand, his voice a low growl as he pulled her tight against him. "Behave." Sophia immediately went still. It was that time of the month, and she couldn't start a fire she couldn't put out. She would be fine, but her husband would suffer. "I found a good psychiatric facility," she said out of the blue. Alex looked down at her. So, she already knew what had happened to the market. Sophia grew restless again, pulling her hand from his grasp. She reflexively reached for his Adam's apple, a habit of hers, then remembered that was just another way to light a fuse. She quickly retracted her hand and began fiddling with his collar instead. "I can have her admitted today," she said, her tone as casual as if she were discussing the weather. Alex was silent. In this world, the wicked often lived the freest lives, unburdened by morality or self-reflection. But Sophia wasn't like that. Chloe's death, by all normal accounts, was an accident. From a darker perspective, it was the result of a terrifying conspiracy. But so much time had passed that the truth was nearly impossible to uncover. This foolish girl had carried the weight of that death on her shoulders for more than a decade. Sophia's coldness was a shield. In reality, she was a soft-hearted, loyal girl who desperately craved family. For her to be pushed to the point of tearing everything down, to be willing to lock her own mother away in a place people only whispered about, showed just how monstrous Catherine's actions had been. Catherine had dug her own grave. "Once I send her there," Sophia said calmly, her words chilling, "she'll never get out." She meant it. Forging a psychiatric diagnosis would be child's play for her. Besides, judging by Catherine's behavior, she probably had a genuine mental illness anyway. Alex did the math. Catherine was in her early 40s. Assuming she lived to be 80, she would spend the next 40 years locked away. For a woman who derived pleasure from controlling others, it would be a long, slow torture. Still, He suspected Sophia wouldn't deign to waste that much time and energy on her. After a long moment of thought, he spoke hesitantly. Sophie, if she's diagnosed as mentally incompetent, she won't be held legally responsible for murder. Sophia looked up at him, as if not understanding his point. I have evidence that she incited a murder. Sophia shot upright, her eyes wide with disbelief. She stared at Alex, certain she had misheard. What did you say? Alex remained on his side, propping his head up with one hand and smiling at her. I said I have the evidence to send her to prison. Sophia's gaze was locked on him, intense and searching. Sophie, he said softly, you're not having second thoughts, are you? She looked perfectly calm, but her hand was unconsciously clenching the bedsheet. Where did you get this evidence? Misdirection and evasion wouldn't work with her. Alex sat up straight, his playful smile gone. I found it myself. Ow. She pressed, her voice sharp. What method did you use? Outside the Starbright Market, Catherine stared in the direction of the private kitchen, her face a mask of gray defeat. She couldn't believe it. She had just been ignored. When Sophia had appeared in the doorway, she had clearly looked in this direction. She had seen her. If Alex could recognize her, there was no way Sophia couldn't. Catherine knew Sophia hated her for being too strict, for pushing her toward the Harlans, for faking her own death, for letting Preston Vance torment her. Before coming here, Catherine had prepared for any number of reactions. Feigned composure, explosive anger, bitter tears. She could handle any of them. But she had never, not for a single moment, considered nothing. Total, dismissive indifference. How could her daughter look at her, as if she were a stranger? Catherine tried to find a flicker of panic or rage on Sophia's placid face, but there was nothing. Her expression was as calm as if she were looking at a random passerby. All of her attention, every ounce of it, was focused on Alex Turner. It was unbearable. To be ignored by the child she had carried for 9 months sent a wave of fury through her. She stood frozen for a long moment before the anger finally caught up with her. How dare that little brat? She was the one who had given her life, who had brought her into this world. Without her, Sophia would have none of her current success. Though Catherine's methods hadn't yielded obvious results at the time, much to her disappointment, Sophia's brilliance wasn't entirely Edward Vance's doing. If she hadn't laid that solid foundation in childhood, forging her resilient character, Sophia never would have survived the brutal training Edward had put her through. Catherine had always believed that Sophia could hate her, but she could never deny her contributions. And she certainly could not ignore her existence. It was a challenge to her authority, and she would not allow it. She started forward again. Ma'am, you still haven't paid for that chocolate. Maria Ramirez poked her head out, utterly bewildered. This wasn't about the money. It was one chocolate bar. Let the crazy woman have it. But was she really an escapee from an asylum? The more she watched, the more unhinged she seemed. For all her cunning, Catherine was still just a physically weak woman. 2 of the men who had been posing as customers moved to block her path, easily preventing her from getting any closer to the private kitchen. Mr. Lowe stepped in front of her, a smirk playing on his lips. Ma'am, you don't seem like the shoplifting type. If you could just pay for your item. Feeling humiliated, Catherine snatched her purse, pulled out her wallet, and threw it at his feet. It's a cheap, low-quality piece of chocolate. You think I actually enjoyed it? You certainly look like you did, mister, Lowe said, his tone dripping with mock sincerity. You were in such a hurry to eat it, you forgot to pay. It's always better to be honest with yourself, don't you think? Catherine's chest heaved with suppressed rage. She had only done it to get Alex's attention. She refused to explain herself, to get dragged into a childish argument with this glorified bodyguard. After a few seconds, she regained her composure, her voice cold. Do you know who I am? Doesn't matter who you are, mister, Lowe retorted. You pay for what you take. A 3-year-old understands that. Don't you? A bubble of fury rose in Catherine's throat. She let out a contemptuous snort. Get Sophia out here. I want to see her. Mr. Lowe, who lacked Charles Harrington's polished diplomacy, was far more direct. And who the hell do you think you are? Catherine's face turned a sickly green. After faking her death, she had been living under Preston Vance's protection, pampered and respected. When his empire collapsed, she'd had to scramble to avoid being dragged down with him, and her days of effortless luxury had vanished. She was a proud woman. She could not tolerate such disrespect, especially from her daughter's employee. The humiliation was twofold. Sophie, before I tell you everything, you have to promise me one thing. Whatever you're angry about, take it out on me. Don't blame Mr. Lowe or the others. They were just following my orders. I was the one who pressured them. I'll take full responsibility. You can punish me however you want. Sophie, you're not feeling well. Please stop pacing. Okay. Alex. Turner. Sophia stopped dead, biting out his name through clenched teeth. A jolt went through Alex. She had used his full name. This was bad. Her face was flushed with anger. You've really grown some nerve, haven't you, Alex Turner? You dare to go behind my back. You must think you're so clever, so impressive right now. Alex adopted his most apologetic tone. I'm sorry, Sophie. I was wrong. Don't think saying sorry gets you off the hook, she shot back, glaring at him. And don't think I don't know what you're doing. You think a few sweet words will make me go soft on you. Alex winced. Okay, this was more serious than he'd thought. He tentatively reached for her hand. Sophie, please don't be angry. It's not worth making yourself sick over. She snatched her hand away. Keep talking. Okay, Alex said quickly. That afternoon, I saw that you weren't yourself, and at the same time, I had a bad feeling about Jessica Vance. I just knew something was about to happen. After you left, I asked Mr. Lowe. Having spent so much time with Sophia, Alex had absorbed some of her decisiveness. The moment he sensed trouble, he had explained the situation to Arthur Lowe. Though he had no concrete reason, his intuition screamed at him to act. He had asked Mr. Lowe to investigate Jessica Vance's personal life and background. After Lowe agreed, Alex made one more request, to keep it from Sophia for the time being, promising he would explain everything later. After a moment's consideration, Lowe had consented. It had to be said, Sophia didn't employ slackers. They had unearthed Jessica's entire history in no time. When Alex learned about the boy whose life she had ruined, forcing him to drop out of school, he had Lowe's team put him under surveillance. How did you know? Sophia interrupted, her voice sharp. How did you know Catherine would manipulate him, use his hatred to make him kill Jessica? Sophie, I'm not a fortune teller, Alex said meekly. I didn't know. It was a shot in the dark that just happened to hit. A blind squirrel finding a nut. He wasn't being modest. He really had just been following a gut feeling when he asked Lowe to keep an eye on a boy. It was pure, dumb luck that it led them to the evidence of Catherine's murder-for-hire plot. When Alex told Catherine she should laugh while she could, he hadn't been bluffing. He wasn't the impulsive kid she saw, running his mouth based on speculation. With careful planning, Alex had taken the proud, condescending Catherine and crushed her in his hand. He finished laying out the sequence of events. Sophia stood nearby, her face a storm of conflicting emotions, shock, anger, and something unreadable. Fearing she would make herself ill, Alex deployed his ultimate weapon. He pouted. Sophie, you're the best. You wouldn't stay mad at me, right? But this time, the tried-and-true method of acting cute failed spectacularly. Sophia's expression didn't soften. It grew darker. This was both expected and completely unforeseen. He knew she'd be upset about him acting on his own, but he thought he could smooth it over with a little effort. He hadn't realized just how serious it was. He had miscalculated, but he didn't regret it. As long as he believed he was doing the right thing, he would never have regrets. It was just a bit of a headache, figuring out how to placate his wonderfully possessive girlfriend. Sophie, what can I do to? Who's a blind squirrel? Are you calling yourself a blind squirrel? She demanded, her cheeks puffed out with indignation. Alex froze. Oh, he'd been about to say, of course I am, but caught himself just in time. Calling himself a blind squirrel who got lucky would only add fuel to the fire. Sophia didn't allow others to put him down, and she certainly didn't allow him to do it himself. He wasn't entirely his own person anymore. He belonged to her. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I'll be more careful from now on, he said, tentatively reaching for her hand again. She resisted, but only for a moment. Alex felt a surge of secret delight. He knew what to do now. She could never stay truly angry with him. Such a little tsundere. He gave a gentle tug, pulling her down to sit on his lap. He whimpered softly. I really know I was wrong, Sophie. Please forgive me just this once. No. Then I'll go home and kneel on 2 pineapples. How about that? Don't you dare. A low laugh rumbled in his chest. He placed a hand on her stomach. Is it still bothering you? You should lie down. Whenever she was on her period, their sleeping position changed from face to face to him holding her from behind, his warm palm resting on her belly to ease the cramps. Her voice was still laced with anger. Do you really think I'm in any mood to lie down right now? Alex, I told you not to get involved in this mess. Don't you understand? He nodded like a bobblehead. I know everything. Everything you do is for my own good. You're afraid I'll get too involved and bring trouble on myself, right? Sophia fell silent. His words made it hard for her to face her own heart. The main reason for her bad mood was, of course, her fear for his safety. But the secondary reason, she was horrified to realize that, even without her, he could handle things so capably. His wings were growing stronger every day. In his career, he had forged his own connection with Walter Pierce, launching a project that she had projected would yield annual profits in the hundreds of millions. When faced with a crisis, he could adapt and react with sharp intuition. She had given him a 5-star hotel and an entire office building to bolster his confidence, to ensure he never felt inferior. But the truth was, given enough time, he could achieve all of that on his own. The realization sent a wave of inexplicable panic through her. Does he not need me as much anymore? The warmth of Alex's hand seeped through the thin fabric of her dress, calming the storm in her heart. She reached down and moved his hand from her abdomen. Alex blinked. Still not forgiven? The next second, she pressed his hand directly against the soft skin of her stomach, his palm covering her small, delicate navel, a place he had kissed many times. The thin layer of clothing wasn't enough for her. Alex rested his chin on her shoulder and smiled silently. Let me see the evidence later. Okay, when did you get it? The day after I woke up. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Her emotions began to stir again. Why did you hide it from me? One of Alex's hands warmed her stomach while the other circled her tiny waist, pulling her closer into his embrace. I was afraid it would upset you, he answered honestly. Catherine wasn't just anyone. And telling me now doesn't. Sophia retorted. Alex switched to logic. Sophie, I never intended to hide it from you forever. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought it up myself, right? She huffed. You think you could have hidden it forever? You'd need Mr. Lowe to cooperate. And even though you deviously convinced him to betray me temporarily, his ultimate loyalty is to me. Alex sighed. Exactly, Sophie. So even if I wanted to hide it, I couldn't. Leaning against his solid chest, Sophia was silent for a long time. Sophie, if you don't want to go through with it, sending her to the psychiatric facility is still a good option. You think I can't bear to see her face the consequences? Of course I can. To me, she's a stranger. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Sophia closed her eyes. Alex could see her expression was calm, as if she were talking about someone completely irrelevant. The moment I decided to stop looking for her, she became nobody, and with that, Alex knew her choice. Arthur Lowe received a call, his expression turning grave as he listened. Yes, Miss Sophia, he said respectfully. Catherine's face bloomed with a triumphant smile. She slowly straightened her collar. Is Joe ready to see me now? Mr. Lowe put his phone away, his face in a motionless mask. Miss Sophia's message was, and I quote, "Get lost." Catherine's smile froze. She took a deep breath. Patience. A disobedient child simply required a more patient mother. There was still plenty of time. She hadn't eaten lunch yet. She found a nearby diner and had just picked up her chopsticks when 2 police officers approached her table. Faced with the uniformed officers, Catherine just smiled, an amused glint in her eyes. What's this? You're saying I incited a murder? Alex's words flashed through her mind, and a cold smirk touched her lips. She sat back, crossing her legs. Unless you can provide concrete evidence, I'm afraid I can't cooperate. A female officer, clearly disgusted by her arrogance, didn't waste words. She snapped a pair of silver handcuffs onto her wrist. You think we're here to play games with you? The cold touch of metal against her skin finally shattered Catherine's composure. Her mind raced. The boy, consumed by despair and rage, was the one who killed Jessica. What did that have to do with her? That's right, it had nothing to do with her. She had used a burner phone purchased online to contact Jessica. She was a stranger to both Jessica and the boy who'd killed her before taking his own life. They had met only once, in a completely private setting where she was careful not to be seen. So no matter how complex the case seemed, how could they possibly suspect her? And yet, Catherine couldn't calm down. If they were all strangers who had never met, why would the police reopen the case and come straight for her? Seeing her stubborn denial, the officers didn't bother arguing. They simply played a video for her, and the footage completely demolished her facade of calm. Jessica Vance still has a bright future ahead of her. And you? Your life is ruined. She's smart and beautiful. She'll never lack for admirers. When she marries some rich man, she'll be living the high life. You know why you lost? You have no power, no connections. You lost because you're still clinging to foolish hope. She feels no guilt for destroying you, because you are of no use to her anymore. Catherine, posing as a sympathetic friend, had twisted the knife in the poor boy's heart again and again. Finally, he snapped, his bloodshot eyes burning with a murderous rage. She destroyed me. I'll have my revenge. I'm going to kill her. Her mission accomplished, Catherine had watched him with a smile full of pitying encouragement. That afternoon, Jessica Vance, a sophomore at Lakeview University, was struck and killed by a car in broad daylight. The evidence was irrefutable. Catherine had nothing to say. An image of Alex Turner's handsome, sunny face, a face that had always irritated her, flashed in her mind. A polite, harmless smile? Impossible. She whispered, her voice trembling. This is absolutely impossible. She had been defeated by a worthless kid she looked down on. Catherine couldn't accept it. She would rather be brought down by Sophia than by Alex. In her mind, Sophia was a part of her, an extension of her own intelligence. Besides, she still firmly believed that Sophia's success was built on the foundation of her own strict upbringing. In a way, to lose to Sophia was to lose to herself. It must have been Sophia, she reasoned. She never stopped looking for me. She must have been tracking me and stumbled upon this video. It couldn't have been Alex. He was just bluffing. Yes, that had to be it. Alex must have secretly given the video to the police without Sophia's knowledge. Once she was locked up, Sophia would be all his. What a beautiful dream he'd woven for himself. How dare he try to snatch away the genius she had so painstakingly created. From beginning to end, it never occurred to Catherine that sending her to prison was Sophia's idea. No matter what, she was her mother. What daughter could be so cruel to her own mother? Besides, she knew how much Sophia craved a family. She was blindly confident that no matter what she did, no matter how much Sophia hated her, she would never truly do anything to harm her. Not even after Sophia had sent Preston Vance, the last of the Vance line, to prison. She was different from Preston. At that thought, Catherine let out a long sigh. She looked at the officers across from her, crossed her legs, and rested her hands on her knees. A smug, irritating smile returned to her face. So what if they had evidence? She had an ace up her sleeve. Alex Turner's little plot was doomed to fail. No one was going to take Sophia from her. A single phone call shattered the peace of their evening meal. Alex was flabbergasted. Catherine had been released without charge, on the grounds of a psychiatric evaluation. Sophia picked up her phone, her voice laced with dark amusement. It looks like that room at the facility won't go to waste after all. The call connected. Proceed with the original plan, she commanded. Send her in. Yes, Miss Sophia. Alex was thoughtful. No wonder she was so confident. She had this planned all along. Sophia gave him a sly look. Husband, don't you feel your ears burning? No, Alex said, touching his ears in confusion. Then he caught on and chuckled. Is someone talking about me? Knowing that woman, she definitely thinks you were the one who turned in the evidence, not me. Alex had no interest in the madwoman, but Sophia's mysterious tone piqued his curiosity. Why? Sophia laughed mockingly. Because she's arrogant. She thinks the bond of blood means something to me. That no matter how much I hate her, I would never turn her in. It's just as you once said about me. I'm soft-hearted. Alex felt a pang of sadness for Sophia. Using a child's weakness to control them was a despicable, terrifying thing. It seems she doesn't know you as well as she thinks. He couldn't resist adding with a touch of pride, she definitely doesn't know you as well as I do. Sophia loved the way his eyebrows arched slightly when he was feeling pleased with himself, a look that was both mischievous and endearing. Of course not, she said dismissively. She's nothing. The next day, Sophia received a call from the psychiatric facility. Catherine was refusing treatment, screaming hysterically, and threatening suicide. She was a proud woman. She would rather die than lose her freedom and endure the dehumanizing humiliation of a mental institution. But she had been given a choice. She could have faced the law. Instead, she chose to hide behind a diagnosis. The consequences were her own doing. Alex slowed his pace, lifting the white towel from his shoulders to wipe the sweat from his brow. Ever since discovering his surprising fragility, fainting after a simple fall, he had become disciplined. No matter how much he wanted to stay tangled up with Sophia in their bed, he forced himself out into the floral-scented morning air to run 5 laps around the garden before heading to the third-floor gym. The biggest change? His 8-pack was more defined than ever, and lifting Sophia was getting easier and easier. Sophia handed him a bottle of water, the cap already twisted off, while speaking in her phone. From now on, you don't need to report her progress to me unless it's something urgent. Do as you see fit. She was effectively handing Catherine's life over to the facility's director. Miss Sophia, the director said, she wants to see you. Sophia sneered. Tell her she can see me when she's dead. I'll come light some fireworks. She asked me to ask you if you want to know where Chloe's family is. Sophia's smile turned to ice. Still trying to pull her strings? The self-important fool. In a private psychiatric facility in Seattle, Catherine, confined to a maximum security room, roared with fury. She won't see me? Impossible. Was it Alex who answered the phone? Who the hell does he think he is? He wants to steal Joe from me? He's not worthy, smack. A sharp slap cut her off. Catherine didn't have a primary psychiatrist. She wasn't there for treatment. This place was a prison, custom-built for her by Sophia. A life sentence. The nurse wasn't a conventional nurse, either. What regular nurse would dare strike a patient? The young woman in the white coat shook her stinging hand. Catherine clutched her cheek, her eyes blazing with disbelief and venom. You hit me. Miss Sophia's orders, the girl said in a businesslike tone. Anytime you disrespect Mr. Turner, you get a slap. We'll keep going until you learn. Bullshit. Joe would never say that. It was that bastard Alex, smack. The girl shook out her other hand, offering Catherine a benign smile. Ma'am, please watch your language. My hands are quite delicate, you know. Catherine finally snapped, lunging forward with a distorted snarl, ready to tear the girl to pieces. The attendant took a calm step back. Clank. Catherine's forward momentum was abruptly halted by the heavy metal chains secured to her wrists and ankles. She was like a cornered animal, able to do nothing but howl in impotent rage. Let me go. I want to see Joe. The attendant watched her, a sense of profound disbelief on her face. This was the madwoman who had given birth to their brilliant Miss Sophia. Their boss had truly been through hell. The girl turned to a doctor who had rushed in. Sedate her. It didn't matter how powerful Catherine had been on the outside. In here, she was nothing more than a lamb for the slaughter. She deserved it. When I was able to, I sent people to find Chloe's family, Sophia said, sitting in the garden gazebo, her head bowed and her mood sinking. Alex truly wished Catherine was dead. She was a toxic, incurable disease, hell-bent on destroying their peace. Chloe's mother had a nervous breakdown, Sophia continued quietly. She jumped from a building. Alex's heart sank. Could it get any more tragic? The next year, her father remarried and had a son. I wanted to transfer my guilt onto him, to compensate him for Chloe. But then I found out he was a raging misogynist who had treated Chloe and her mother horribly when they were alive. That's why her mother took Chloe and left to try and make a life for themselves in another city. When people mentioned them, Chloe's father would curse them as bad luck, as ghosts who died young. Sophia had her men beat him until he agreed to kneel at their graves and apologize. And that was the end of that. In the end, Sophia did go to the psychiatric facility. She went while Alex was at class. Because Victor Harlan, who had been lying in a coma at Lakeside Sanatorium for 2 years, had his breathing tube removed. At the exact same time, Catherine, in her high-security room, had attempted suicide. Who would believe it? Both incidents happened at 9 in the morning. Sophia wanted to laugh. Can't be born on the same day, but will die on the same day? Catherine, the woman who claimed all men were trash, was certainly devoted to Victor Harlan. She couldn't even leave this world without taking him with her. Through the reinforced glass of the visitation room, Sophia's voice was placid. The staff here seems to be taking good care of you. You look much better. Catherine, pale and gaunt from blood loss after a failed attempt to slit her wrists, looked up at her and let out a strange guttural laugh. Her life had become so pathetic that she wasn't even allowed the dignity of choosing her own death. But it wasn't a total loss. At least she had finally summoned the great Miss Sophia. Catherine glanced behind her. Didn't your little kept man come with you? Sophia's eyes narrowed. The nurse inside the room raised her hand, and a loud crack echoed as her palm met Catherine's cheek. Sophia felt one slap wasn't enough. The nurse swung again, striking the other side of Catherine's face. Her head snapped to the side, and it took a long moment for her to find her voice, which came out as a trembling whisper. Until this moment, she had believed that Alex was behind all of it, sending her here, the daily humiliations, the beatings. She had assumed that if she could just get Sophia to see her condition, Alex would be finished. So she had caused chaos, thinking that if she died, it would be a release. If she summoned Sophia, she would have a chance to crush Alex. Either way, she couldn't lose. But now, with Sophia sitting just outside the enclosure, watching her get slapped without so much as blinking, she understood everything. If Catherine had harbored any delusion of a comeback, Sophia's indifferent expression shattered it completely. How could you do this to me? I'm your mother. She died a long time ago. Catherine stammered. I had to leave back then. I had no choice. Sophia's eyes widened in mock surprise. How ironic. The woman was actually trying to explain herself. So, she was afraid? Sophia studied her with detached interest, noticing the redness in her eyes. How fascinating. So she could feel fear? What was she afraid of? That Sophia would keep her here for the rest of her life, in a living hell where even death was a luxury? Just like the life Catherine had made for her as a child? I only came to ask you one thing. The doll my grandmother sewed for me when I was little. Did you burn it? What doll? I don't remember, Catherine said, her voice tight with false bravado. Did you hire someone to kill Chloe? Catherine's eyes darted away. Of course not. And the puppy. Did you kill it too? Cold sweat beaded on Catherine's forehead. Good. Sophia had asked 3 questions, and Catherine had evaded all of them. It didn't matter. Sophia had her answers. She stood up to leave. Catherine lunged toward the barrier. Joe, don't go. Leave Alex. Listen to your mother. Leave him. You know men are all worthless. You're only invincible when you're not tied down by love. Everything I did for you, Joe. Why can't you understand? When will you stop disappointing me? Sophia looked at her, a bitter, incredulous smile on her face. For me? Is that why you used the most vicious words imaginable to attack me, to crush my confidence? Telling me I was born beautiful just to be a man's plaything? Telling me no one in this world would ever truly love me? The nurse listened, her heart pounding. A mother had said those things to her own daughter. Knowing Miss Sophia's life was hard was one thing, but this... The nurse's eyes blurred with tears, and her fists clenched. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Sophia said, her voice cutting through the air. You met a scumbag because you don't know how to pick a man. I do. My life is destined to be 1,000 times better than yours. Before heading home from class, Alex always made a point to stop by the Starbright Market to say hello. Today was no different. Maria Ramirez caught him by the arm. Alex, hold on a minute. Jake will be right back. Alex smiled and agreed, though he was puzzled. It wasn't like Jake was a rare sight. He saw the guy 2 or 3 times a week and endured his constant barrage of texts. There was no need for his mom to make him wait for a grand reception. As if reading his mind, seeing his eagerness to get back to Sophia, Maria quickly explained. Simon's sister makes the most amazing spicy pickled green beans. You mentioned Sophia likes them, right? Well, she made a new batch and drops them off for both our families. You could take some home with you. Alex's interest was piqued. On a hot summer day, Simon's sister had brought over heavy jars of pickled beans, and the person sent to greet her wasn't her brother, but the young heir, Jake Ramirez. The calculation was so obvious. The beads of the abacus were practically smacking Alex in the face. Poor, naive Simon had no idea that the friend he spent hours discussing video games with, a guy who seemed to have nothing else on his mind, was secretly pining for his sister, and had been for a long time. Alex walked to the entrance and spotted Jake pulling up on a flashy pink Vespa. Simon's sister, Jenna, was riding on the back. Alex made a point to observe her hands. They were resting primly in her lap, not wrapped around Jake's waist. It seemed Jake's secret crush still had a long way to go. The guy acted all tough and fearless, but he was a hopeless romantic. One smile from Jenna and his heart would pound so hard he couldn't speak. He'd told Alex as much himself. As for actually confessing, he didn't have a nerve. Alex sighed. If Jake couldn't make the first move, he might have to step in. A brother's happiness was on the line. The Vespa came to a smooth stop in front of him. Jake put his feet down, his voice uncharacteristically gentle as he spoke to Jenna. Be careful getting off. Alex instinctively rubbed his arms. His friend's rare display of tenderness was giving him goosebumps. Jenna dismounted and gave Alex a polite smile. She was of average height, with a slender build and delicate features. Whether she knew about Jake's feelings or not, Alex couldn't help but think they looked good together. Jake pulled a large jar from under the seat. Here, this is yours. Alex took it, feigning offense at his dismissive tone. Are you trying to get rid of me? What are you talking about? I wouldn't dare. Jake grinned, shooing Jenna inside toward the air conditioning. Don't let me keep you. Hurry home to your wife. Alex sometimes thought that even if he weren't completely devoted to Sophia, he'd have a hard time straying. Everyone in his life seemed to conspire to remind him that he belonged to Sophia, that he had to be with her, spoil her, and be absolutely faithful. He chuckled. Sophia hadn't just changed him. She had changed everyone around him. They had all become her willing accomplices in keeping him tied to her side. Alex, holding the heavy jar in one hand, clapped Jake on the shoulder with the other and whispered, Good luck, man. Hope you get the girl. Jake's ears turned bright red. Alex laughed. Just as he was about to leave, Jake called out, Hey, Alex, wait up. Alex slid one hand in his pocket and gave him a sidelong glance. Hey, could you ask Cody for me if he needs any more help at the restaurant? You're looking for a summer job? Alex asked. Summer break was approaching, and Jake had already been complaining about another season of unpaid labor for his mom. Not for me. Got it. Alex understood instantly. A job for your girl? Why don't you just ask him yourself? Jake mumbled. You're the only one who knows right now. I don't want anyone else to figure it out. Alex put a hand to his forehead. Dude, aren't you exhausted? Not at all. Jake flashed a wide, toothy grin. Just thinking about her fills me with this energy like I can do anything. It pushes me to be better. Love was a strange thing. It could just as easily destroy a person, like the boy Jessica Vance had ruined. But it could also inspire someone to change for the better, like the still lovelorn Jake Ramirez. And sometimes, it could work miracles, changing the fates of not just one person, but many. Like him and Sophia, his parents, Jake, and all the rest. Back home, Alex handed the jar of pickled beans to Mrs. Helen, who beamed and announced they would have spicy fish stew for dinner, Miss Sophia's favorite. On a sweltering summer day, what goes best with air conditioning? Watermelon, of course. On the way home, Alex had asked to stop at a fruit stand. Mr. Lowe had insisted he wait in the car. I'll get it, Mr. Turner. You don't know how to pick one. I do. Mr. Lowe's choice was perfect. Alex washed the melon, placed it on the cutting board, and rested the knife on its skin. He swore he barely applied any pressure, but with a satisfying crack, the melon split open. He set the knife aside and easily pulled the two halves apart. He wrapped one half in plastic and put it in the fridge for Mrs. Helen and the staff, and carried the other half away, grabbing a spoon on his way out. He liked to eat watermelon with a spoon, scooping it out in big chunks without making a mess. Since being with Sophia, this ritual had gained a new pleasure. He could feed her. He found Sophia in the garden. A cool breeze rustled through the lush greenery, offering a rare respite from the summer heat. She was sitting on a swing, her feet gently pushing off the ground, lost in thought. She was so deep in her reverie that she didn't notice him until he was standing right in front of her, holding out a spoonful of the sweetest, juiciest part from the heart of the melon. She looked up, startled out of her daze. Husband, you're home from class. I'm so sorry. I forgot to wait for you. It's okay, Alex said, his voice even gentler than Jake's had been with Jenna. Open up. Sophia obediently opened her mouth. The sweet, slightly sandy-textured melon melted on her tongue. Alex scooped up another piece and held it out. Sophia slapped his hand lightly. You're not allowed to break the rules. Alex laughed. The so-called rule was that when one of them was feeding the other, they had to strictly adhere to a one for you, one for me policy. He hadn't forgotten. He was the one who made the rule in the first place, after Sophia had fed him an entire bowl of cherries while barely eating any herself. The breeze stirred Sophia's long hair, letting it brush softly against Alex's cheek. They sat side by side on a bench in the gazebo, enjoying the sweet watermelon. We're having spicy fish stew tonight. Ooh, I love that. The pickled beans are from Jake's crush. Wait, who's his crush again? I think you told me, but I forgot. Sophia only had perfect recall for things related to Alex. Everyone else was subject to her mood. Simon's sister, Jenna, the one who's 3 years older, right? Are they together? No. Old Jake doesn't have the guts to confess. He thinks he's not good enough for her yet. Well, he's definitely no match for you, husband. Alex preened inwardly. Of course, Jake couldn't compare to him. He was the best man in the world, after all. If Jake heard Sophia's blunt assessment, he would. Well, he wouldn't do anything. He'd just have to suffer in silence. Lost in his moment of triumph, he didn't notice the small smile that flickered across Sophia's lips before she suppressed it. Her husband looked so cute right now, with that smug, mischievous little expression on his face. An idea sparked. Husband, she said innocently, you have a watermelon seed on your mouth. Alex instinctively moved to wipe it away. Don't move. I'll get it for you. So Alex stilled. Sophia leaned closer, her eyes twinkling. Her skin was flawless, smooth, pale, and perfect. Sometimes when Alex wanted to get a little rough, he had to hold back, afraid of marring it. Up close like this, her skin seemed to glow, so translucent he imagined that if he pinched her cheek, sweet juice would trickle out. His hand twitched with the urge to do just that, but he managed to resist. As her breath ghosted across his face, he couldn't help but pucker his lips slightly, ready for the kiss he knew was coming. Sophia dodged away with a playful smirk. What are you doing? I'm getting the seed for you. Behave. Then she issued a command with mock severity. Close your eyes. Oh, Alex said, obediently closing them. He knew exactly what was happening. It was one of her favorite little games. She'd claim he had something on his face, tell him to close his eyes, and then steal a kiss. She never failed, and afterward, she'd act like she'd pulled off the heist of the century. Of course, since he was always so cooperative, she had a perfect success rate. She was smart enough to know that it wasn't the thrill of the sneak attack she loved, but the way he always complied. He waited in happy anticipation for the touch of her soft, jelly-like lips. He felt something light, carrying the faint, sweet scent of watermelon, brush against the corner of his mouth. He frowned. That wasn't her lips. Her lips were softer. Just as he was puzzling over it, the warmth of her presence pulled away. There. Got it. Alex's eyes snapped open. He saw Sophia holding up a single, glistening black watermelon seed between her thumb and forefinger. See, husband? You really did have a seed on your mouth. He touched the corner of his lips, a little stunned. She was actually just getting a seed, not stealing a kiss. But he'd been eating with a spoon, putting the flesh directly into his mouth and spitting the seeds out. How could a seed possibly have gotten stuck there? He looked at Sophia, who was clearly struggling to hold back her laughter, her eyes curved into crescents. She blinked at him with wide, innocent eyes. Husband, why do you look so disappointed? What were you expecting? Alex inwardly cursed his own foolishness. She wouldn't play the same trick on him every day. She'd switched it up. That seed had been prepared in advance, a prop for her new little prank. You little devil, he said, a mix of exasperation and affection in his voice. At the same time, he felt a wave of relief. From what he could see, Catherine's reappearance had had a minimal impact on Sophia. With her locked away in a psychiatric facility, no one would be coming to bother them again. All he had to do now was wait patiently for the day he could make Sophia his wife. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Sophia spoke. Victor Harlan is dead. The word dead jolted Alex out of his happy reverie. It felt so out of place in this perfect moment. Who's dead? Victor Harlan. Ethan and Caleb's scumbag father. He's dead. It hit Alex then. The two brothers' father was also Sophia's. Her biological mother had just been sent to an asylum, and now her biological father was dead. The timing was strangely coincidental. Alex froze. There was no such thing as that many coincidences. An outrageous coincidence was usually not a coincidence at all. Sophia saw the question in his eyes and answered it before he could ask. Catherine did it. It was unexpected, but it also made perfect sense. The history between Catherine and Victor Harlan was complicated, but there was no denying that all of her bitterness stemmed from him. Sophia was the biggest victim of their toxic relationship. Catherine should never have transferred her hatred for him onto her own daughter. If she wanted revenge, she should have gone after the man himself. The fact that she had waited until now meant she must have been clinging to some foolish hope for him all these years. What a pathetic, tragic woman. But she's in the facility. How could she? Alex stopped, realizing how stupid his question was. Catherine didn't need to do things herself. With enough money, you could always find someone willing to walk on the wrong side of the law. Sophia gestured for him to keep feeding her. As Alex, his mind reeling, scooped out another perfect red sphere of watermelon, he heard her say wistfully, I really want to buy some fireworks to celebrate. Alex's hand trembled, and the piece of watermelon slipped from the spoon, rolling onto the ground. Sophia tilted her head. Did that shock you? Do you think I'm cruel? Not all. Not only did he fail as a father, he tried to exploit you for everything you were worth. The fact that you didn't pull the plug yourself was an act of mercy. Setting off a few fireworks is nothing. You're lucky you're so quick on your feet. Sophia sniffed haughtily. Since she brought it up, Alex continued the conversation. The Harlan family won't let this go, having their patriarch's life support unplugged just like that. And what can they do? The person who did it jumped off a building and died. I heard the orderly had massive gambling debts and was already suicidal. He took Catherine's money hoping for one last lucky streak, but he never got the chance. He fell during the arrest. Alex shook his head. What kind of people are these? It was a classic case of overplaying your hand. Sophia was unfazed. It takes all kinds to make a world. Even if the orderly is dead, the Harlans won't just drop it. The orderly left a suicide note saying he hated the rich and wanted to take one with him. But the Harlans are too smart to be fooled by that, Sophia continued. They'll put pressure on the police. It's only a matter of time before they find the truth. Just then, Charles Harrington appeared. Miss Sophia, Mr. Harlan is here. Alex and Sophia exchanged a look. That was fast. This time, Sophia didn't turn Ethan Harlan away. Perhaps it was out of consideration for his newly deceased father. Ethan was, as always, impeccably dressed in a suit, though today it was a somber black. His father had been in a coma for 2 years with no hope of recovery, so his death probably felt more like a formality than a tragedy. There was little grief on Ethan's face, but to die in such a shocking way, rather than from natural causes, was something any son would find deeply unsettling. Ethan sat down and got straight to the point. My dad is gone. Alex had the strange feeling that when Ethan said my dad, he was subtly including Sophia in the statement. Biologically, Victor Harlan was her father, too. Sophia clearly picked up on it, and her expression frosted over. Is that all you came here to tell me? That the old man is dead? Ethan's eyes reddened. Normally, he would ignore her barbs, but today, Her blatant mockery was piercing. No matter what, that man was their father. "Sophia, have some respect for the dead," he said, his voice rising with grief and anger. Alex's posture tensed. His impression of Ethan had always been decent, but if he dared to lay a hand on Sophia, all bets were off. Still, from Ethan's perspective, it was understandable. He was stuck defending an indefensible father because of the unbreakable bond of blood. Thankfully, Ethan only glared at Sophia, his voice louder than usual, but his hands remaining at his sides. Sophia sat calmly, unfazed. "Ethan, you should be grateful I didn't buy fireworks to celebrate." Only Sophia could say something so outrageous and get away with it. No one dared to challenge her. Ethan was a rational man, even in grief. He took a few deep breaths and visibly composed himself. "I'm sorry, I'm being emotional. My dad's funeral is the day after tomorrow." This time, he was careful to specify my dad. "Okay," Sophia said coolly. "And you're not expecting me to attend, are you?" No, Ethan said, waving his hands and offering a bitter smile. "That's not what I meant. I just thought you should know." Sophia was growing annoyed. "Is there anything else? Caleb is back from the capital. Consider his father just died. He can come back. I won't hold it against him." Ethan was silent. "If there's nothing else, you can leave." Ethan hesitated, remaining seated. This wasn't why he had come. He was here for something far more important. Alex and Sophia had already anticipated it. After a few seconds of silence, Ethan got to the real reason. "My dad's death was suspicious." "And?" Sophia asked. "So?" Ethan's gaze locked onto hers. "Do you know something?" he asked, his words slow and deliberate. "What? You think I had someone pull his plug? If I wanted to do that, I would have done it years ago." "No, that's not what I mean. I just thought you're well connected." "Then you came to the right person," Sophia said, a cold smile touching her lips. "I do know something." Ethan was stunned. He had come here with a question that was haunting his entire family, not expecting much. Sophia's blunt admission left him speechless. "You know? Who is it? Tell me." "Catherine." "Catherine? Whose?" Ethan's voice trailed off as the name registered. "Sophia's biological mother. The woman who had destroyed his parents' marriage. An unexpected, yet logical culprit." His expression became impossibly complex. "Where is she now?" "A psychiatric facility." Ethan shot to his feet, all composure gone. "Sophia, don't you take this too far." Sophia just stared at him. Alex sighed softly. "Mr. Harlan, it's not what you think." Ethan clearly assumed Sophia had stashed her mother in an asylum to protect her from the law. The reality was the exact opposite. Ethan looked at Alex, and miraculously, he seemed to calm down. He rubbed his temples, looking overwhelmed. "What the hell is going on?" Sophia, her patience gone, dismissed him. "We're about to have dinner. Please see yourself out." Alex gave Ethan a subtle look. Ethan hesitated, 1,000 questions on his face, but ultimately, he turned and left. The spicy fish stew that night was particularly delicious. Sophia ate a whole bowl of rice. Or maybe she just had a good appetite because her mood was good. Alex scraped the last of the rice and sauce from his own bowl. Sophia put down her chopsticks and elegantly wiped her mouth with a napkin. "Husband, do you feel sorry for him?" Alex hadn't tried to hide his silent communication with Ethan. He had simply wanted to explain the things Sophia couldn't be bothered to prevent any further suspicion. "Sophie, you don't think I'm meddling, do you?" Alex asked. "When have you ever not meddled?" Alex winced. She was bringing up old history again. He gave a sheepish grin. "I don't care about other people's business. The only business I want to meddle in is yours." The words pleased her, and she decided to let it slide. For now. The next day, Alex met Ethan Harlan at a coffee shop on the Lakeview campus. He gave him the condensed version of recent events, including Jessica Vance's death and Catherine's role in it. Ethan listened, his shock growing with every word. Last year, Preston Vance's schemes had nearly bankrupted Harlan Corp., so he knew something was wrong even if Sophia hadn't said a word. But this year was different. Catherine's methods were more insidious, her attacks more ferocious. Sophia had been enduring her mother's assaults long before she had orchestrated his father's death. Ethan couldn't help but think that if Sophia had told him, if they had been prepared, maybe his father would still be alive. But he quickly dismissed the thought. Even if she had warned them, they never would have seen it coming. Who could imagine that a seemingly delicate woman could harbor such a venomous heart and execute such a meticulous plan? He didn't hold it against Sophia. She had never wanted anything to do with them. She wouldn't ask for their help even if the sky were falling. As Ethan sat in stunned silence, Alex glanced out the window. They had chosen a table by the glass, and students bustled past outside. A few had noticed them. Ethan was a well-known figure in Seattle, and Alex himself was becoming more recognizable. The two of them together were drawing attention. Finally, Ethan processed the information and thanked Alex. The thought was a bitter one. The only link between his family and Sophia was an outsider. "Don't mention it," Alex said. "To be honest, I'm being selfish. I don't want you endlessly speculating and coming to bother Sophia. We just want some peace." Alex's directness made Ethan's smile even more strained. "Mr. Turner, you give me too much credit. How could he possibly bother Sophia?" But if she really had been protecting her mother, it would have put him in an agonizing position. After a moment's hesitation, Alex decided to ask directly. "Mr. Harlan, forgive me for asking, but do you really believe everything I just told you?" "What choice do I have?" Ethan countered. Alex was at a loss for words. Ethan gave a self-deprecating laugh. "I believe you, Mr. Turner. We haven't known each other long, but for some reason, I trust you." Alex was taken aback. Ethan's gaze was sincere. For some reason, Alex felt a connection with him. He had always had a decent impression of the man, but now he felt a flicker of something akin to camaraderie. If it weren't for the complicated history between their families, he would have liked to be his friend. "Do you know why I trust you?" Ethan continued. "To be precise, I trust Sophia's judgment. The person she chooses can't be a bad man." Hearing someone praise his girlfriend's taste to his face, Alex felt a swell of pride. "Thank you." Ethan hesitated. "Alex, if you don't mind me asking, when did you and Sophia meet?" Seeing how smitten she was with him, Ethan could almost believe they were childhood sweethearts. But he knew a little about Sophia's early life. She had been utterly alone. She couldn't have had any childhood friends. Alex seemed to have appeared out of thin air and completely captured her heart and soul. It was baffling. Sophia was cold and aloof. She didn't let people in easily. To be honest, the day he found out about Alex, Ethan hadn't been able to sleep. He'd had Alex investigated, but the results only deepened the mystery. On paper, Alex Turner was unremarkable. A Seattle local, father a skilled laborer, mother a housewife, family struggling financially. There was no logical way his path should have ever crossed with Sophia Reed's. Alex considered the question. Normally, he would have ignored it. But today, there was a sense of mutual respect between them, and Alex wasn't a cold person by nature. Still, he wasn't about to give Ethan a detailed history of his relationship with Sophia. "It was a chance encounter," he said, deliberately vague. "We met a long time ago." Ethan's mind went to work. After Victor had taken Sophia from Catherine, his plan had been to keep her hidden, to mold her until she was controllable, then present her to the world as a charity case, an adopted daughter of the Harlan family. From there, he would use her beauty to secure advantages for the company. Ethan understood that running a business required sacrifices, but he had always disagreed with his father's plan for Sophia. She had received nothing from the Harlan family. Her very birth was a tragedy. Victor had no right to dictate her future. At the time, Ethan's influence was minimal, but he had managed to overlook her hiding place, allowing her to escape. In the years between her escape and her powerful return, Sophia had been off the grid. What she had experienced, who she had met, was a mystery. But one thing was certain. She had encountered something extraordinary. Otherwise, the quiet, withdrawn girl could never have become the formidable presence she was today. From Alex's few words, Ethan deduced that they must have met after she ran away. What a dramatic, fateful encounter. He didn't press for details. He was smart enough to know when to drop a subject. Thinking of his father, dead because of an affair, his mother, heartbroken and living abroad, his impulsive younger brother, screaming for revenge, and his half-sister, with her own tragic fate. His broken family was a weight in his chest. "She must have suffered a lot," he said, his voice thick. Alex sighed silently. Yes, she had. The few days of her past that he knew about were bad enough. He didn't dare imagine the rest. She desperately needed to be loved. If not for the bitter feud between their parents, Ethan would have wanted to be the protective older brother she never had. But even if he could let go of the past, Sophia never would. Ethan's phone rang. He excused himself and hurried off. The moment he was gone, Alex called Sophia. There was no reason. He just suddenly, desperately, needed to hear her voice. Better yet, he wished she were here so he could hold her. As always, she answered on the first ring, a privilege reserved only for him. "Husband." Her voice came through the phone, and Alex pressed it tight against his ear, her soft breath creating gentle ripples in his heart. He didn't know why he had called. He just needed to hear her. Ethan left the university and headed directly for the psychiatric facility. Caleb was waiting for him, his eyes dark with suspicion. "Ethan, are you sure that girl isn't playing us?" A year away had stripped some of the rich boy swagger from Caleb, but his father's pathetic death had reignited his impulsive nature. If Ethan hadn't held him back, there was no telling what he would have done. He'd always suspected Sophia was involved, and now it turned out she was. Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose, exhausted. I had someone check with the police. Catherine was in custody. Sophia provided the evidence. Catherine got out on a psychiatric plea and was immediately brought here by Sophia's people. It seems Sophia had nothing to do with Dad's death. Are you that naive? She couldn't have used her mother to do her dirty work? Use her mother as a weapon? Ethan countered. Caleb fell silent, then latched onto another question. So that girl really would turn in her own mother? Seeing is believing. After seeing Catherine with their own eyes, Caleb's last shred of doubt vanished. The sight of her, chained to the wall, sent a chill down his spine. If Sophia could be this ruthless to her own mother, what would she do to anyone else? He was now 100% certain this was the woman who had ruined their family. Caleb had never met Catherine, but he recognized her instantly. As a child, he had found a photo in his father's wallet of him with a strange woman, both of them smiling for the camera. He had foolishly shown it to his mother, who had fainted and been hospitalized. The image of the woman was burned into his memory. He had fantasized about getting revenge on that homewrecker, and now here she was, and she was not doing well. Payback. The irony was that her own daughter had delivered it. She deserved it all. When the two brothers entered the observation room, they were both taken aback. The scene before them was far worse than they had imagined. They had assumed that even if Sophia were being impartial, she would at least afford her mother some dignity, a comfortable room. Instead, Catherine was in the highest security ward, reserved for the most dangerous patients. And as if that weren't enough, she was in heavy metal chains. The conditions here were worse than prison. At least in prison, they didn't chain you to a wall. Catherine was slumped in the room's only chair. At the sound of the door, she looked up, muttering a curse under her breath. That heartless bitch. If I had known you'd be so ungrateful, I would have smothered you at birth. Her voice died when she saw it wasn't Sophia, but two grim-faced young men. As she looked up, the brothers gasped. The left side of Catherine's face was a swollen, purple bruise, the clear imprint of a hand across her cheek. Facts seen with their own eyes sent a fresh wave of shock through them. Catherine had recognized them, the sons of a rival. Their presence was another knife in her heart. But what dignity did she have left to defend? Her own daughter had personally ground it into dust. Who was to blame? Not the child she never loved. Only herself. She was far from innocent. Catherine's own brilliance and beauty had convinced her that she had Victor Harlan wrapped around her finger. She was wrong. She had tried to use her pregnancy as a bargaining chip. She was wrong again. When he told her to get rid of it, she had hidden herself away and given birth, transferring all her hatred for him onto the innocent child. She had never given that child any love. Why should she expect any in return? Staring at the Harlan brothers, her composure shattered. What are you doing here? Caleb's shock morphed into pure, unadulterated rage. What do you think we're doing here? He spat. We came to laugh at you. The words hit their mark. Get out, she shrieked. Get out right now. Homewrecker. Caleb seethed. Tell us the truth. Were you behind my father's first car accident? Catherine looked at him with contempt, trying to salvage a shred of dignity. That's right, it was me. He was a heartless bastard. It was what he deserved. I'll kill you. Caleb lunged the glass. Caleb, calm down. Don't fall for it. Ethan grabbed him. I gave him one last chance, Catherine raved, but he didn't take it. So I ran him down myself. And when I saw how pathetic he was, lying in that bed, I sent him on his way. You should thank me. You're right, we should thank you. Ethan cut in, his voice cold and sharp. Thank you for failing to hold on to my father, for failing to hold on to your own daughter, and for turning yourself into a pathetic clown locked in an asylum. Catherine froze as if choked. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her lips trembling. That bitch sent you here? Doesn't she understand that her honor is tied to mine? If I suffer, people will gossip about her too. Caleb let out a harsh laugh. You really think highly of yourself. Her honor? She's on a level you can't even imagine. And what are you? You know what the highlight of your entire life was? The moment you gave birth to her. Without that, you're nothing. Having vented, Caleb paused, a strange thought occurring to him. Why does it sound like I'm defending her? He felt like he was going crazy, but he suddenly realized that Sophia had been merciful with him. After all, her own mother. Leaving the facility, the brothers drove in silence. Catherine's living hell was a punishment far more fitting than a simple prison sentence. As the victim's sons, they found a grim satisfaction in her fate, so much so that even Caleb's suspicions about Sophia had evaporated. He looked back at the cold, imposing building under the dark clouds, a shiver running down his spine. The knowledge that his father's killer was trapped inside brought a strange sense of relief. She's so ruthless, even to her own mother. I heard her mother never showed her an ounce of affection. She hated her as much as she hated our father. They fell silent again. They both realized hate wasn't the right word. For Sophia, her mother and their father might have mattered once, but after enough disappointment, they had become nothing to her. They were beneath her notice. In that sense, Catherine's fate was her own doing, not a specific act of cruelty from Sophia. The only person in the world Sophia seemed to care about was Alex Turner. Leaning back against his seat, Ethan murmured, "Caleb, you used to say I was scared of Sophia, that I'd lost my nerve. And I admit, I know I could never win against her. But haven't you ever thought, she's really pitiful?" Caleb wanted to snap back. Who isn't? His mother, their family, they were all pitiful. But the words died in his throat. He wasn't a child anymore. He knew it took two to tango. His father wasn't blameless. His heart felt heavy, not just for his father, who had died a pathetic death, but for something else he couldn't name. A frozen part of his heart, long encased in prejudice and hatred, was beginning to thaw. The day after Victor Harlan's funeral, Catherine died. She had starved herself to death. Perhaps it was Sophia's final act of mercy. If she had truly wanted to torture her, she never would have let her die so easily. Sophia never went to see her, not even at the end. When the news of her death came, she left the arrangements to the facility director. Catherine, who had once been so arrogant, who had believed she could bend her defiant daughter to her will, could never have imagined that her life would end with a stranger scattering her ashes into a cold sea. No funeral, no grief, and no tears. Her ashes were scattered off a quiet stretch of the Oregon coast, far from Seattle, and even farther from Lake Granby, near Denver. Sophia didn't want her anywhere near her Uncle Edward's final resting place. Before her death, Catherine had made one last move. She had mailed a full account of the Harlan family's lies and Sophia's true parentage to a reporter, intending to rip the family's reputation to shreds and make them pay for Victor's sins. But by the time she died, nothing had changed. The story never broke. Because Alex, in the process of uncovering her plot against Jessica, had also noticed her sending a suspicious package. Mr. Lowe had intercepted it. As for her machinations at the sanatorium, Mr. Lowe had known about them, too. He hadn't told Alex, and in a bold move, he hadn't told Sophia either. He had simply looked the other way. He knew he would face his boss's wrath later, but he didn't regret it. He had always despised that man. The day Victor Harlan died, Arthur Lowe confessed everything to Sophia, ready to accept any punishment. She had simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Good work," she'd said, her voice lazy. "But don't make a habit of it." And that was that. Summer break had arrived. At Jake Ramirez's request, Alex Turner had a word with his cousin Cody, and soon a girl named Shun Cheong started working at Cody's boba shop. Which meant, of course, that Jake shamelessly blew off working at his own family's market and showed up to work there, too. Cody, oblivious, didn't get it. Jake, however, had his reasons ready. "If I work at my family's place, my parents will just say it's what I'm supposed to do and toss me some pocket change. But working for you is different, cousin. You'll pay me a real wage on time. It'll give me a sense of accomplishment. Make spending my own hard-earned money feel a lot more legit, you know?" Cody nodded, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. "Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense." Standing nearby, Alex stifled a laugh. He saw right through Jake's little scheme, but kept his mouth shut. Jake shot him a threatening glare that screamed, "Dude, if you blow my cover, we're done." Alex had better things to do. Seeing his nephew thriving in Seattle was a great source of pride for his aunt, Emily Turner, and her husband, Michael. They had helped Cody get his start, of course. Sophia had provided the storefront rent-free. Michael had connected him with a top-tier beverage consultant, and Emily had overseen the shop's renovation. But Cody had poured his own blood, sweat, and tears into the business, studying operations and perfecting his recipes. The shop was a massive success. At this rate, he'd soon be able to buy his own place in the city. Speaking of which, that brought his ex-fiancée to mind. After their disastrous engagement party, she and her family had played hardball, acting as if they wouldn't even consider a reconciliation until Cody came crawling back with a massive apology. She had wildly overestimated her place in his heart, clinging to the idea that she was the one that got away. What she didn't know was that her ugly, greedy true colors had shattered his idealized image of her. He realized he'd been in love with a fantasy, not the real, grasping woman she turned out to be. When no apology came, she panicked. She started calling him, sobbing about how cruel he was. Annoyed, Cody blocked her number. Later, When she heard through the grapevine that he'd opened a successful business with his aunt's help and was easily clearing 6 figures a year, her regret intensified. But that was her problem. For Cody, their relationship was ancient history. There was no going back. He discovered a new passion, making money. He dreamed of earning enough to bring his parents and grandmother to Seattle to live comfortably. Not that they couldn't already. Emily had warmly invited them, pointing out their house was more than big enough. Sophia had even offered to give them a separate guest house, just for visiting family. But his grandmother was too attached to her little garden and the 4 walls she'd known her whole life. And his parents, a proud and considerate couple, didn't want to impose. Living in a house their own son had bought for them, that would be a different story. That would make them proud. After leaving Cody's shop, Alex drove straight to his parents' house for dinner. He and Sophia tried to have dinner there at least twice a week, like a young couple making their regular visit to the in-laws. As Alex stepped in the yard, he saw Brandon Pierce come barreling out of the house, letting out a series of comical yelps. Right on his heels was Pudge, their fluffy Samoyed, pink tongue lolling as he chased Brandon with the ferocity of a tiny polar bear hunting its prey. Alex was completely baffled. Pudge was the gentlest dog on the planet, and Brandon always came bearing bags of imported gourmet pet treats. Pudge wasn't the type to bite the hand that fed him. Then he saw Sophia standing on the porch, a devilish grin on her face, and it all clicked. Sophia had a bizarre, almost magical power over that dog. If she told Pudge to go east, he wouldn't dare sniff west. If she told him to chase a squirrel, he wouldn't glance twice at a bird. Alex had to face it. Pudge was, without a doubt, Sophia's #1 sycophant. Sophia pumped her fist in the air. "Get him, Pudge. I'll give you a steak if you take him down." Alex rarely saw this playful, almost childlike side of her, and he couldn't help but smile. Brandon, in a full-blown panic, sprinted toward him and dove behind him, grabbing his shoulders for protection. "You little traitor," he whined at the dog. "Do you have any loyalty at all? Do you know how many delicious things I brought you?" Alex mercilessly twisted the knife. "Pudge is a puppy, Brandon, not a traitor." Brandon's face fell. "Dude," he cried, his voice thick with betrayal. "Alex." Alex glanced from a smug-looking Sophia, hands on her hips, to the dog, who had abandoned his hunt and was now wagging his tail happily at him. Alex sighed and lowered his voice so only Brandon could hear. "What did you do to piss off your fairy godmother this time?" Sophia wouldn't unleash the hound without a reason. Brandon looked even more wounded. "I didn't do anything. So you're saying she's just petty and targeting you for no reason?" Brandon's eyes widened in horror. No, I never said that. That's all you, man. Has nothing to do with me." The kid looked terrified. His status as the son of America's wealthiest man meant absolutely nothing to Sophia. If she was annoyed, she had no qualms about putting him in his place. And his own doting parents would just laugh it off. "Oh, honey, she's just playing with you." It was tragic. Here he was, the coddled heir to a national fortune. And when Sophia decided to mess with him, he had absolutely no one in his corner. What could he do but take it? Defeated, Brandon skulked away. Fine, he thought. If I can't hang out with Alex, I'll just go find my other friends. 1 mango pomelo sago and 1 strawberry milkshake. That'll be, oh wait. The cashier, a girl named Ivy, paused. "Hey, boss." "Ivy, this is my friend," Cody said, waving a hand. "It's on the house." The customer, however, was not pleased. "Hey, Cody, are you trying to disrespect me? Why is it on the house? You think I can't afford it? You keep this up and I'll order 10,000 more just to run you ragged." Cody was speechless. Ivy just blinked. Great. They'd run into a rich kid who took offense at a freebie. The world of the wealthy was truly baffling. "Brandon, Manitoba, I wasn't trying to disrespect you," Cody said, holding up his hands. "Just please, don't order that many. You'll kill us." "Hey, weren't you just at my aunt's place looking for Alex? How are you back so soon?" Jake, officially on the clock but taking full advantage of his friendship with the boss, sauntered over to eavesdrop. Seeing Brandon's slumped shoulders and pouty expression, he knew instantly. Looks like someone got on Sophia's bad side. Huh. Brandon leaned against the counter, glaring at the smirking faces of his so-called friends. "What do you think happened? Uncle Michael and Aunt Emily were always nice, and Alex was always cool. There's only one person who could make him eat dirt and send him running for the hills. His beautiful, terrifying fairy godmother in residence. And I missed out on Aunt Emily's zucchini fritters." He lamented internally. Such a huge loss. He should have known better. Just because Sophia had been smiling at him didn't mean he could try to steal a moment of Alex's time. The immediate consequence was getting sicked on by the dog. It was horrifying. How did Alex survive Sophia's intense possessiveness? Then again, if he ever found a girlfriend as incredible as Sophia, he'd probably be just as happily whipped as Alex was. Hey, kiddo, Jake said, leaning in. Spill. How'd you heroically challenge the dragon in its lair this time? Give us the details so we know what landmines to avoid. Brandon shot them a withering look. I see how it is. You guys pretend to care, but you're all just here for the drama, aren't you? Jake burst out laughing. Hey, you don't have to be so blunt about it, even if it's true. Brandon, deciding to be the bigger person, ignored him. You know, Alex joined a photography club, right? They got a field trip coming up. Really? I haven't heard him mention it, Jake said, then added confidently, his wife would never let him go. Alex had symbolically joined the club at the start of freshman year, but had never attended a single meeting or event. The club leadership was too intimidated to ever question it. Brandon immediately proved him wrong. Sophia is letting him go. What? No way. Yes way. Don't believe me? Go ask her yourself. Jake's neck seemed to shrink into his shoulders. I'm not crazy. But seriously, you're not messing with me? She really agreed? Oh, I get it, he said, snapping his fingers. She's going with him, right? Brandon delivered the denial with a smug flourish, his confidence restored. So what if he'd been chased by Pudge? He had insider information they didn't, and that was worth something? Nope, she's not going. Huh, that's impossible. They're practically conjoined. I heard her say it with my own ears. She told Alex to go have a good time. Cody cut in. I'm still not seeing the connection. What does any of this have to do with you showing up here looking like you've seen a ghost? The phrase seen a ghost made Brandon grind his teeth and roll his eyes. I just thought it sounded fun, he said, his voice laced with frustration. So I asked Alex if I could tag along as his +1 and hang out for a couple of days. Jake howled with laughter. I knew it. You're still trying to get your precious sleepover with Alex, aren't you? Can we please drop that already? Brandon groaned. I've seen the error of my ways. I'm a changed man. He was just an innocent kid. All he wanted was to go on a trip with his big brother figure. Was that so wrong? His only mistake was foolishly voicing this desire in front of the petty and possessive queen of the castle. She had immediately summoned her four-legged henchman, who chased him out of the house. Unbelievable. The zucchini fritters are ready. Emily called from the kitchen. Sophie, come try one. Brandon. He had to run. Something came up, Alex said without batting an eye. Emily looked surprised. He left? Just now? He didn't even say goodbye. That wasn't like Brandon. The kid was always impeccably polite, and he'd just been clamoring to try her fritters. Alex had to lie. It was urgent. He forgot. Oh, Emily said, disappointed. Well, I guess I'll have to make them for him another time. Alex reached for a fritter. Mom, don't worry about him. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. What hasn't he eaten? That's not a nice thing to say. It's because he's had everything that he's probably never tried simple, homemade food like this. Right, Sophie? Sophia smiled sweetly. And Emily is right. I've never had them before. She pouted, blowing on a hot fritter before popping it in her mouth. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, perfectly seasoned. They were delicious. Emily shot Alex a look. You hear that? Alex sighed. I was wrong, Mom. I'll never speak again. When Sophia reached for her fifth fritter, Emily gently reminded her, Sophie, honey, I made a big lunch. Save some room. Sophia obediently pulled her hand back. Emily smiled and disappeared back into the kitchen, leaving Alex and Sophia alone in the dining room. The moment she was gone, Sophia stealthily snatched another fritter. Her cheeks, tinged with a rosy pink, puffed out as she chewed, making her look like an adorable, greedy little hamster. You're not allowed to tell on me, she mumbled through her mouthful, threatening him. The sight made Alex's heart ache with affection. He desperately wanted to poke her chubby cheek. So he did. Well, he thought, if she wants me to keep her secret, there has to be a price. He reached out and gently poked her cheek. He barely had a second to savor the indescribable satisfaction before Emily walked back out of the kitchen. Stop bullying Sophie, she scolded, glaring at him. Alex was speechless. Mom, you give me way too much credit. As if I dare. Sophie, are you sure you want me to go on this trip? MHM, you won't come with me? No. If I go, your classmates won't be able to relax. That was undeniable. Most people couldn't handle Sophia's powerful presence. Aren't you worried some other girl might make a move on your handsome husband? Let them try. Pudge trotted over happily, and Alex bent down, offering him a piece of fritter. The little beast, spoiled by high-end dog food, sniffed it with his wet nose, then turned and waddled away, his fluffy but swaying in disdain. Didn't that kid want to go with you? Sophia asked. Let him. Alex blinked. Huh, I thought you didn't like him clinging to me. I don't, Sophia said. He's annoying, always trying to steal you from me. But I trust that even if he has the nerve, he doesn't have the guts. If he wants to go, let him. He's Walter Pierce's precious son, so he'll have plenty of security around. If he's with you, I'll feel a little more at ease. Alex smiled. He didn't need to piggyback on Brandon's security detail. This was just Sophia's roundabout way of admitting she was sending Brandon to keep an eye on him. After all, her own people, like Arthur Lowe, couldn't just overtly insert themselves into his college social life. The Little Tsundere. The photography club's destination was a picturesque tourist city in the south, famous for its mountains and rivers. The theme of the trip was America, the Beautiful. The train ride alone was over 3 hours, making a day trip impossible. After a group vote, they decided on a 2-day excursion. Tickets were booked in advance. The train was at 3 p.m., and everyone was to meet at the station by 2:30. As with any club event, a few people had last-minute conflicts. Out of 36 members, 35, not counting the ghost member Alex, 19 had confirmed. The rest were at home, on vacation, or working summer jobs. Alex showed up right on time. Not because he was trying to make a statement, but because leaving his wife for the first time, even for a short trip, felt like tearing a part of himself away. Everyone else was already there. His arrival caused a small stir. The club president had posted the attendee list in their group chat, and everyone had been shocked to see Alex's name on it. After some private discussion, the consensus was that he wouldn't actually show. It was just a name on a list. Why would someone so mysterious and aloof bother hanging out with a bunch of regular students? So when Alex actually walked in, the surprise was palpable. A few of the less reserved members stared openly. Simon Shaw waved him over. Alex walked toward him, his expression calm. Simon was also in the club. He hadn't planned on coming either. His only camera was a cheap, knockoff phone that took blurry pictures, and he needed the money from his job at the Ramirez family's market. But when Jake's parents heard about the trip, they insisted. They dug out Jake's expensive DSLR, which had been collecting dust in a drawer, handed it to Simon, and gave him 2 days off, telling him that participating in school activities would be good for him. Thank God Simon was here. Alex didn't really know anyone else. He wasn't antisocial, but he had no burning desire to make new friends. Even with Sophia's encouragement, he might have backed out otherwise. Thinking of Sophia, Alex's lips tightened slightly. Luckily, she was a natural beauty who rarely wore makeup. If she'd been wearing lipstick, their farewell kiss would have definitely left a mark. 2 nights away from home. Would he even be able to sleep? Since they'd started sharing a bed, they had never been apart. And without him holding her, would Sophia be able to sleep? When he'd voiced this concern, she had grinned and produced a fluffy dog plushie. Pointing to its brown nose, she'd said, "Don't worry, husband. While you're gone, Pudge 2. 0 will take your place." In that case, maybe he needed a Pudge 3. 0. Just in case he couldn't sleep, he could hold it to fill the emptiness in his heart where Sophia should be. He still couldn't believe she'd agreed to let him go. She used to watch him so closely. Now, suddenly, she was letting go, saying she couldn't be so selfish, that he should have a normal college social life. The sentiment was almost comical. With their history of her attending classes with him and their public displays of affection, a normal college life was probably off the table forever. Everyone looked at him with a mixture of awe and fear. They didn't dare get too close. It was lonely at the top. Alex guessed that the stability of their relationship had finally given Sophia a true sense of security. With threats like Preston Vance and Catherine out of the picture, she finally felt safe enough to loosen the reins. Someone snapped a picture of Alex and Simon sitting side by side in the waiting area, chatting. Sophia, sitting in the back of her car on the way to the office, received the text and opened it. In the photo, Alex looked relaxed and at ease, a faint smile playing on his lips as he talked to Simon. There was no sign of lovesickness on his face. Of course, they'd been apart for less than half an hour. He was usually at school for longer than that. If he couldn't handle this tiny separation, they really would be conjoined. And yet, in the past, when Alex was at school for hours, she'd grown used to it. Now, after just a short time apart, her heart felt hollow. Maybe it was because she knew she wouldn't see him for 2 whole days. This small separation was just the beginning of a larger one, which made the ache even sharper. Her gaze lingered on Alex's face. He shines wherever he goes, she thought. Because he's Alex. 2 days without seeing her husband? She had to keep herself busy. If she exhausted her mind, she wouldn't have time to miss him so much. Sophia was a walking contradiction. She didn't want him to go, but she was pushing him away, even at the risk of her own sleepless nights. Not even Alex knew she was conducting an experiment that was critically important to her. And though she already suspected the conclusion, she needed a clear, definitive answer. The train departed on time. A little over 3 hours later, they arrived at their destination. A wave of heat, even more intense than Seattle's, washed over them. Alex shielded his eyes from the lingering glare of the setting sun and followed the group to the pre-booked bed and breakfast. The lodge was simple but clean and tidy. Everyone seemed satisfied with the accommodations. Alex, sorry about this, the club president said apologetically. Our budget is pretty tight, so this was the best we could do. If you're not comfortable and want to stay somewhere else, that's totally fine. Just make sure you join us for the group activities. The trip fee was $500 per person, not including train tickets. To find such a clean place within that budget was impressive. Rumor had it the president was a master haggler who had gotten them a group discount. Everyone was grateful. Alex smiled. No, this is great. I like it. People probably saw his designer clothes and privileged lifestyle and assumed he was high maintenance. But deep down, he was still the same practical, frugal kid from a family that had struggled. He wasn't obsessed with material luxuries. The flashy designer clothes he wore every day were chosen by his darling wife, and wearing them was just one more way to make her happy. The rooms were doubles. Alex was rooming with Simon. Just as they got their keys, Alex's phone rang. It was the kid. Brandon Pierce had arrived. Alex, I'm here. Where are you? I'll send you my location. Huh? You're not coming to pick me up? Are you sure you want me to come get you personally? Never mind. I'll come find you. Good. The kid knew when to back down. The call ended. Alex sent in the pin, then switched to his chat with Sophia. He snapped a picture of the lush green forest outside his window and sent it to her. He typed, "Made it, my love." He deliberately avoided showing the room's interior. It was Spartan, and he didn't want her to think he was roughing it. In reality, he genuinely liked it. Stripped of luxury and modern amenities, it felt like a return to simplicity. Sophia replied almost instantly. Are there snakes in the woods? Bugs? What about mosquitoes? Alex was speechless. What he saw as a beautiful, scenic view, she saw as a collection of potential threats. Another text followed. Husband, don't you dare put up with it if it's bad. If the place is a dump, go check into a hotel. Alex smiled wryly. It's actually fine, not as bad as you'd think. I'll see how one night goes. If it's no good, I'll leave. Sophia sent back a nodding kitten sticker. Don't suffer in silence when you're away from home. I know, my love. Love you. He sent the same photo to his mom. Her reply was, looks beautiful. Remember to stay in touch with Sophie while you're gone. Alex chuckled. Each room had its own bathroom. Simon opened his suitcase and neatly arranged his toiletries. Seeing Alex put down his phone, he asked with a hint of concern, where's Brandon going to stay? Their room had 2 twin beds, one on each side. There was no space for a third person. He's the heir to a fortune, Alex said, assuming the obvious. He won't be able to stand this place. He'll go stay at one of his family's 5-star hotels. The Pierce family had business interests in multiple sectors, with properties all over the country, even the world. Unless he chose to, Brandon would never be without a place to stay. Knock, 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 knock. After a dramatic 4-part knock, Brandon made his grand entrance. He strutted across the threshold, followed by bodyguards carrying an assortment of bags. Brandon scanned the room, his brow furrowing. The outside looked sketchy, and the inside, yep, just as sketchy. Alex, who had clearly miscalculated, was at a loss for words. You're going to stay here? Brandon gave him a strange look. It's not that I want to stay here. It's that I'm staying wherever you're staying. Don't forget, I came here to be with you. You can't ditch me. You see what this place is like, Alex said. This is it. You won't be comfortable. Just get a hotel room and meet up with us tomorrow morning. Don't underestimate me. If you can handle it, I can handle it. My parents are always saying I've had it too easy, and I'm just looking for trouble. Well, this is my chance to prove them wrong. Who says their son can't handle a little hardship? I can totally stay in a dump like this. With that, Brandon took a solemn selfie to document his hardship. Simon stood by, a faint smile on his face, saying nothing. He was long past being surprised by the gap between his life and theirs. Brandon's version of slumming it didn't make him feel uncomfortable or resentful. For him, this room, with its perfectly white, unpeeling walls, no drafts, no leaks, and a private bathroom, was more than good enough. If only his grandfather back home could live in a place like this. Speaking of his grandfather, he planned to go straight home after the trip. He had to convince the old man to move to Seattle with him. He had saved up a little money from work, which was why he'd felt he could afford this trip. The rest would be enough to rent a small apartment and cover living expenses for him and his grandpa. He prayed his grandfather would live a long, healthy life. One day, he would buy a huge house for his sister and grandfather, and they would live the kind of life everyone dreamed of. When Simon snapped back to reality, he found Brandon sprawled starfish-style across his bed. I call this bed tonight. Al, why is this mattress so hard? You see the conditions here, Alex said. The beds are hard. You really think your pampered body can handle a night on this? A hotel would be much more comfortable. Brandon, though built like a beanstalk, was still just a kid at heart. No way, he said stubbornly. I'm a man. A little hardship is nothing. I said it before, if you can stay here, so can I. Alex frowned, about to pull the big brother card and lay down the law, but Simon stepped in. It's okay. Brandon can have my bed. Alex felt a pang of guilt. After all, this little troublemaker was his responsibility. No, then you'll have nowhere to sleep. It's fine, I can sleep on the floor. Brandon, who had been rolling around on the bed, froze and sat up. This is Simon's bed? There are only 2 beds in here, Alex said, his tone impatient. Now that he knew Brandon better, he didn't bother with pleasantries. 1 for me, 1 for Simon. There's no room for you. Brandon blinked. Oh, I thought you guys each had your own room, and Simon was just here talking to you. Though a bit of a rebel, he was a good kid at heart. He quickly jumped off the bed, scratching his head sheepishly. Sorry, Simon. I didn't mean anything by it. Don't sleep on the floor. I'll go to a hotel. His face fell with disappointment. Simon smiled warmly. It was only natural that the kid would feel a special attachment to the person who saved his life, wanting to be near him. But Alex's girlfriend was fiercely protective, viewing Alex as her exclusive property. No one, man or woman, was allowed to get too close. Brandon had never really had a chance to hang out with him. Since he'd finally found an opportunity, why not let him have it? Brandon, how about this? Simon proposed. You go get a room at a nearby hotel, and I'll stay in it. What do you think? Brandon's face lit up. Yes, of course. Afraid Simon would change his mind, he immediately had one of his guards book a room. When he heard the best hotel nearby was only a 4-star, Brandon asked cautiously, almost pitifully, Simon, is a 4-star okay? Simon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was trading a simple room in a B&B for a comfortable 4-star hotel. By any normal logic, he was getting an incredible deal. But for the wealthy, the math was different. Of course, that's more than fine. Simon, you're the best. The B&B provided 3 meals a day. They were filling, but the quality was on par with a school cafeteria. Alex didn't dare send a picture of his dinner to Sophia. Alex, with a conspicuously out-of-place Brandon in tow, sat down at the communal dining table with the other club members. Everyone couldn't help but stare at the newcomer. Alex had mentioned to the club president that he was bringing his little brother, so they had heard whispers, but seeing him in person was another thing entirely. Alex was handsome, so they figured his brother would be too. They weren't wrong. He was a clean-cut, charismatic kid who radiated charm. Alex had paid an extra club fee, simply saying his brother was coming along, without offering any further explanation. Everyone naturally assumed he was a blood relative, if not a full brother, then a cousin. From his clothes and demeanor, it was obvious he was a young master-born with a silver spoon. If they had known he was Brandon Pierce, the son of America's richest man who had been all over the news last year, who knows how they would have reacted. The Pierce family protected Brandon's privacy fiercely. He had never been seen in public. To be safe, Alex had Brandon use an alias. And so, Brandon Pierce became Ben Pierce. Ben stared at the colorless, flavorless meal in front of him, his expression pained. This is what we're eating for dinner. Did you think we were on a luxury vacation? Alex whispered. If you can't eat it, I'll order you something later. The food wasn't great, but it was edible and filling, which was good enough. Ben adopted a mature tone. It's not about me. I'm just worried Sophia will be upset if she finds out. At that same moment, in the Reed mansion, Sophia sat alone in the vast dining room. Before her was a spread of 6 dishes and a soup, each one a culinary masterpiece. Yet she had no appetite. Without her husband by her side, she couldn't bring herself to take a single bite. Staring at the empty seat across from her, she quickly looked down, as if not seeing it could help her pretend someone was there. She mechanically pushed a few grains of rice in her mouth, then suddenly realized how ridiculous her self-deception was. She lifted her head and stared calmly at the empty chair, her thoughts uncontrollably drifting. Is he eating now? What is he eating? Who is he with? Does he miss me as much as I miss him? Probably not. It wasn't that she doubted his love for her. But unlike her, who was completely alone, Alex was surrounded by classmates. And now he had that annoying pest Brandon with him. He wouldn't feel lonely. That was a fact. Alex was a radiant sun wherever he went. She, on the other hand, only felt truly alive when she was bathed in his light. For hours had passed since he'd left. She had the preliminary results of her experiment, though it was a conclusion she had long anticipated. She couldn't live without Alex. 2 phones sat on the table to her right. One was exclusively for communicating with Alex. The other was for receiving updates about him. Both buzzed with new messages. Her hand instinctively went to the phone for Alex, but she hesitated, then steeled herself and picked up the other one. Oh, that annoying pest Brandon swapped rooms with Simon, so he got his wish of staying with my husband. They're starting dinner. What is that? Is that even food? It looks inedible. Sophia's already low spirits plummeted into irritation when she saw the picture of Alex's dinner. Was that food for humans? She'd believe it if someone told her it was pig slop. How could her husband eat pig slop? Her husband was meant to enjoy the finest things in this world. On impulse, she nearly grabbed her phone to order Arthur Lowe, who was shadowing Alex, to arrange a 5-star feast for him. But she stopped herself. Whether it was pig slop or not, everyone there, including that fussy little brat, was eating it. She hadn't forgotten. She was in the middle of an experiment. However long Alex was gone was how long the experiment would last. She had resolved to give him complete freedom for these 2 days. Otherwise, her interference might skew the results. Alex had no idea that Sophia was secretly conducting this test. He didn't know she had visited a psychiatrist. She hid it so well that he also didn't know the profound impact Catherine's words had had on her. Sophia would never fall for Catherine's poison and doubt Alex's character. But the night she'd met her mother, she hadn't been able to sleep. Lying there, holding Alex, listening to his steady breathing, she had a terrifying thought. What if one day, just what if, he leaves me? What would I do? Love could fade, curdle, or disappear entirely, and it didn't always have to involve a third person. Time was a terrifying solvent, capable of diluting everything, including love. Over a long life, who could guarantee that 2 people in love wouldn't eventually grow tired of each other, the novelty worn away by familiarity? To be clear, Sophia was certain she would never, ever grow tired of Alex. He was her light, her source of energy, but she couldn't be sure if he could withstand the erosion of time and willingly stay by her side forever. She needed this brief separation to test her own endurance. It was crazy and it was painful, but Sophia believed it was necessary. At the same time, she had to give Alex 2 days of absolute freedom. She desperately needed to know just how asymmetrical their needs for each other truly were. Sophia picked up the other phone. She saw a message from Alex, sent 5 minutes ago. Brandon's here. Simon and I were supposed to room together, but Brandon wanted to stay with me, so he traded his hotel room with Simon. The beds are too small for 2 grown men, so he's not sleeping in the same bed as me. Don't worry, my love. Ever since he'd gotten on the train, Alex had been reporting his every move with meticulous detail. He was being impossibly good. The anxiety in Sophia's eyes slowly faded, replaced by warmth. She scrolled down. We're eating dinner now. Have you eaten? Dinner's provided by the B&B. It's a so-so, reminds me of my high school cafeteria. I dare Brandon to eat it, and he actually had 2 big bowls of rice. Ha! A small smile touched Sophia's lips. She replied, I've eaten. Gonna work for a bit now. Then, as always, he ended with his customary sign-off. Love you. Mrs. Helen looked at the barely touched dinner on the table and shook her head, worried. The moment Mr. Alex was gone, Miss Sophia stopped eating properly again. It was so stressful. Charles, how long will Mr. Alex be gone this time? He'll be back in 2 days. That long? Mrs. Helen despaired. Charles Harrington offered some well-meaning advice. Helen, you'd best not show how much you miss Mr. Alex. If Miss Sophia sees it, she might get the wrong idea. Mrs. Helen was speechless. Miss Sophia's possessiveness over Alex manifested in every aspect of their lives. That's not what I meant, she clarified. Charles, Miss Sophia only ate 2 bites of rice tonight. I swear, when Mr. Alex is here, she eats 3 proper meals a day. We just got some color back in her cheeks, and now that he's gone, she's back to not eating again. Charles frowned. Is that so? What I mean is Mrs. Helen pressed. You should contact Mr. Alex, tell him what's going on, and have him check in on her about her meals. You will not. Just as Mrs. Helen was furtively conspiring with Charles to tattle on Miss Sophia, a firm voice cut through the air. Mrs. Helen jumped and spun around. Sophia was standing right behind them. She walked toward them slowly, her brow slightly furrowed. You're not to tell Alex anything about me. But Miss Sophia, Mrs. Helen said, her voice filled with worry. If you don't eat, you'll get thin. Mr. Alex will be heartbroken when he comes back. Sophia forced a smile. I just wasn't hungry tonight. I'll eat properly tomorrow. It was a blatant attempt to placate them. Mrs. Helen wanted to argue, but she saw Charles silently shake his head, so she closed her mouth. Watching Sophia's lonely figure ascend the stairs, Mrs. Helen sighed and asked Charles in a low voice, Why would she ever let Mr. Alex go on a trip like this? Charles shook his head. He often couldn't decipher Miss Sophia's thoughts. It was clear she hated to see him go, yet she was the one who had encouraged him to attend this event. I just hope that when Mr. Alex gets back, he stays by her side and doesn't go anywhere else, Mrs. Helen muttered. Don't worry. Charles comforted her. It's only 2 days. After her shower, Sophia climbed into bed and silently hugged the plush dog she had prepared. 2 minutes later, she stared at its cute, inanimate face and felt utterly ridiculous. How could she have thought this thing could ever replace her husband? She ruthlessly tossed the toy aside and grabbed Alex's pillow instead, burying her face in it. Her long, silky black hair cascaded over her shoulders as a tidal wave of longing washed over her. She could barely control the urge to call him, just to see his face, to hear his voice. But she couldn't. Sophia decided she had to be cruel to herself. It was the only way to get an accurate result from her experiment. Alex kept checking his phone. 7:30 p.m., then 7:40. 8:20. He'd been watching the clock since dinner. It was now 8:30. Brandon sat cross-legged on his bed, contentedly gnawing on a large, crispy fried chicken leg he'd ordered, a desperate attempt to salvage his stomach from the B&B's pig slop. Alex, the chicken's getting cold. You should eat. I'm not hungry, Alex said without looking up. I ate a lot of dinner. You finish it. Brandon tilted his head, confused. Dude, if you want to call her, just call her. What are you waiting for? Alex's lovesickness was so obvious, it was practically written on his forehead. If Brandon couldn't see it, he was blind. But honestly, they'd only left this afternoon. It had only been a few hours. Was this level of pining really necessary? He'd seen plenty of couples, even deeply in love ones, but he'd never seen anything like this. Sophia's possessiveness was off the charts. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say she treated Alex like her personal property. Now that she had finally let him off the leash for a bit, shouldn't he be feeling a little relieved? Brandon had once entertained a hypothetical. What if Alex fell for someone else? Of course, it was just a hypothetical. But would Sophia do something to him? The thought sent a chill down his spine. But seeing Alex looking so lost and lovesick, Brandon knew his hypothetical would forever remain just that. Given Alex's devotion and character, he would never do anything to hurt Sophia. Brandon relaxed. He didn't want either of them to get hurt. Alex was his savior, after all, and Sophia, despite her temper, had a good heart. He knew she was all bark and no bite. The day she'd set Pudge on him, she'd also had someone deliver him a batch of Aunt Emily's zucchini fritters, still hot and crispy. They were both good people. Alex put his phone down. She said she had to work. I don't want to bother her. Excuses, all excuses, Brandon said, cutting straight to the point. Since when does Sophia being at work mean you can't call her? Alex, no offense, but that's the lamest excuse I've ever heard. What's going on with you two? Tell me. Alex glanced at him. Go wash your hands. If you get grease on the bed, you'll have a fun time sleeping tonight. Oh, Brandon said, obediently getting up to wash his hands. Halfway there, he stopped. Hey, don't change the subject. Alex sighed. This kid was too clever for his own good. This is adult business. Kids shouldn't get involved. Don't look down on me, okay? I'm 15 this year, almost 16. So what if you're 16? You're not an adult until you're 18. Brandon fell silent, then asked nervously, Alex, did you and Sophia have a fight? Alex's brow furrowed, but he didn't answer. No way, you really did? I knew it. Sophia keeps such a tight leash on you. Why would she suddenly let you go on a trip? Isn't she afraid some other girl will snatch you up? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old who could be lured away with a lollipop? No one is snatching me away. Alex, stop changing the subject. You're the one treating me like a 3-year-old. So even you think something's off? Alex murmured, almost to himself. Brandon leaned closer. You guys really are fighting? No, Alex said, exasperated. But something definitely felt wrong. It had started the moment Sophia told him to go on this trip. He pretended not to notice, but he couldn't ignore the growing unease in his gut. He thought he knew Sophia inside and out, but this time he couldn't figure out what she was up to. All he could do was play along. For now, if he sensed things were going sideways, he would be ready to act immediately. On the first night of their separation, Alex couldn't sleep. Ironically, it was Brandon, the young master who had complained about the hard bed, who fell asleep after just a few tosses and turns. He slept like a log, sprawled sideways, diagonally, on his stomach, his sleep so deep and untroubled it made Alex envious. He just couldn't fall asleep. He lay on his back, arm tucked behind his head, staring at the ceiling. He'd lost count of how many times he'd checked the clock. It was only a little past 2 in the morning. Time was crawling by at a torturous pace. When would morning come? When could he go home? He had just left, and he was already desperate to go back. Without Sophia, nothing felt right. He opened his phone, the screen still on his last chat with her before bed. With Brandon there, he hadn't dared to get too mushy, so they had just exchanged their usual goodnights. She was sleeping now, cuddling Pudge too. 0. Damn it. He was starting to get jealous of a stuffed animal, even knowing it was just a stand-in. Was she sleeping well without him? If the answer was yes, he would feel a small sting. Did she not need him as much anymore? If the answer was no, his heart would ache for her. Was she sacrificing her own comfort just so he could have a normal college experience? Either way, it left a bitter taste in his mouth. The only solution was to go back to Seattle and never leave her side again. In the quiet of the night, Alex had a startling realization. He was seriously ill. He had a disease where being away from Sophia made him lose his appetite and his ability to sleep. And the only cure was her. A short, sharp gasp was followed by a terrified shriek that exploded next to Alex's ear. Alex! The voice was a mixture of terror and grief, so dramatic that a ridiculous thought popped into Alex's head. Am I about to die? Thump! Brandon, in the next bed, had rolled right off and landed on the floor. Alex's heart leaped into his throat. Brandon was the pampered heir to a massive fortune. If anything happened to him on his watch, how would he ever explain it to his parents? He flipped on the light and saw Brandon lying motionless on the floor, groaning. Brandon, are you okay? He helped him up. Brandon winced and explained he'd had a nightmare. Alex helped him back onto the bed and checked him from head to toe. Seeing no injuries, he couldn't help but chuckle. A nightmare? Was it about me? He immediately felt a bit conceited for asking. Brandon had other friends, other people he looked up to. That cry for Alex might not have been for him. Yet the sound of it still echoed in his mind, chilling him to the bone. Brandon nodded, looking embarrassed that a nightmare could scare him so badly he'd fall out of bed. Go back to sleep. It's still early, Alex said, picking up the fallen blanket and straightening the pillow. Okay, Brandon mumbled, lying back down. Alex went back to his own bed. Just as he reached for the light switch, Brandon suddenly spoke. Alex, can't you sleep? Alex looked over. Brandon looked sheepish. Alex. I lied just now. I didn't actually have a nightmare. Alex was stunned. Then what was all that screaming about? I woke up, Brandon stammered, and when I opened my eyes, I saw this pale, white face staring at me. I thought there was a ghost in the room. The more he listened, the more bizarre it sounded. Alex looked around the room. A pale, white face. Where? Brandon shakily pointed at him. Even as a firm non-believer in ghosts, a chill ran down Alex's spine. Behind me? This was like something out of a horror movie. But he had a clear conscience. He calmly turned around. Behind him was just a plain white wall. But Brandon was still pointing directly at him. Confused, Alex touched his own face. I realized pretty quickly, Brandon said weakly, that the face was yours. But for a terrifying moment, he had been convinced the room was haunted, that something horrible had happened, that Alex had been murdered. Alex didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His complexion was perfectly healthy, but in a dark room, lit only by the glow of a phone screen. Yeah, it probably looked pretty creepy. The whole mix-up was so absurd his first instinct was to tell Sophia about it. But she would immediately ask, why were you on your phone so late? You don't have a habit of staying up on your phone. Were you having trouble sleeping? Was it because I wasn't there? Just then, Brandon said with relief, I'm glad it was you here when I embarrassed myself. If it had been Jake or the others, they would have laughed at me and told everyone. But I know you won't. Alex felt a pang of guilt. He had just been planning to share this exact story with Sophia. Brandon was wide awake now. Alex, are you thinking about Sophia? Alex nodded honestly. You guys are really great together, Brandon said wistfully, propping his chin on his hand. Alex, what does love actually feel like? Alex looked at his still childish face and smiled. You'll know when you find a girl you really like, who really likes you back. Puffed, Brandon said, sounding like a world-weary old man. It's not that easy, especially for someone like me. Alex understood. Someone with my status. His family was so wealthy that it was hard to tell who was genuine and who was just after his money. Brandon's mood suddenly dipped. My dad is a pretty decent guy, right? But my mom is still completely exhausted trying to fend off all the gold diggers who throw themselves at him. If I could choose, I'd rather have been born into a normal family. Even if we weren't rich, my parents wouldn't have been working all the time. They could have spent more time with me instead of leaving me with nannies and bodyguards. A family like yours would be perfect. Alex, I love the atmosphere at your house. It's so warm and loving. Hearing this, Alex was struck by how similar it was to something Sophia had once said. You can say that to me, but don't ever let your parents hear you, Alex said gently. They love you no matter what. Life is never perfect, and they have their own struggles. I can understand why you feel that way, but I can also see how hard it must be for them. Brandon fell silent. Alex worried he had upset him by not taking his side completely, but then Brandon spoke again. Alex, you know why I like hanging out with you so much? Besides the fact that you make me feel really safe, you're also one of the only people who doesn't coddle me. It helps me see myself more clearly. Alex wasn't sure what time they finally fell asleep, but when he opened his eyes, everyone else was already up. Only he and Brandon were still in bed. After a brief, whispered debate, the club president drew the short straw and came to wake them, bracing himself for their grogginess. Fortunately, Alex wasn't grumpy in the mornings. He apologized for oversleeping. Brandon, on the other hand, started to get a little fussy, but a single sharp look from Alex was enough to make him behave. Back at the Reed Mansion in Seattle, Mrs. Helen stared at the barely touched breakfast on the dining table, her face etched with worry. Miss Sophia had hardly eaten again. She'd skipped dinner last night, and now breakfast. How could her body handle it? But Miss Sophia had explicitly forbidden her from telling Mr. Alex. It hadn't even been a full day since he'd left, and Miss Sophia's life was already reverting to its old, chaotic patterns. No, it was worse than before. Charles, take me to the office. Charles instinctively glanced at the time. It was 7:10 a.m. Miss Sophia, the office doesn't open until 9. She gave him a quizzical look. Don't you have a key? Charles sighed. Yes, miss. I'll get the car. On the way to Harlan Corp, Sophia rested her chin in her hand, staring blankly out the window. What would she be doing at this time normally? Probably still wrapped around her husband's neck, refusing to let him get out of bed. Miss Sophia? She turned numbly toward Charles in the driver's seat. He hesitated. Perhaps. We should ask Mr. Alex to come home early. For a fleeting moment, Sophia's expression softened. Yes, bring him home. I can't last another second without him. God only knows how I survived the long night. Not even Pudge, too. Zero could save me from this suffocating loneliness. Only he can. After a few seconds of silence, she shook her head. It's only 2 days. He'll be back soon. Charles sighed quietly. The dark circles under her eyes were impossible to miss. As soon as Mr. Alex was gone, her insomnia had returned, and it was clearly worse than ever. He truly didn't understand. Why would she send Alex on some unimportant club trip when she so clearly hated being without him? He sensed she was fighting some kind of internal battle, but for what? Charles was right. Sophia was fighting with herself. She was channeling the same fierce determination she had used to force herself to learn the dry, tedious subjects of business, trying to discover just how severe her dependence on Alex had become. No one knew how anxious and terrified she had been lately. At night, she dreamed of Catherine's twisted, smiling face saying, "No man is any good. One day, he will leave you." Even though she knew Alex's character, knew he would never be unfaithful, she couldn't be sure he would love her forever. When the day came that he turned to leave, and she had lost all control over him, what would she do then? Sophia looked down, hiding the sadness in her eyes, and checked her phone. As expected, her husband had sent her a message. It was a picture of a vibrant, glorious sunrise. The text read, "My love, we're heading out now." Early that morning, the group gathered their gear and set out for their first location, a famous local scenic spot. But the weather had other plans. A sudden downpour caught Alex and a few others off guard, drenching them completely. It was terrible luck. But looking on the bright side, the post-rain scenery had a fresh, new beauty, even more captivating than before. The lucky ones who had stayed dry continued shooting, while the drowned rats had to find a nearby clothing store. Brandon stood in front of a mirror, turning left and right, his face a mask of disgust. Alex emerged from a fitting room. "If you really can't stand it, we can go back to the B&B so you can change." But the B&B was a half-hour drive away. Going back and forth would waste too much time. The best solution was to buy new clothes. Alex didn't mind, but Brandon, born with a silver spoon, was picky and couldn't bring himself to wear such cheap, off-the-rack stuff. Brandon shot him a silent, sidelong glance, and his strange competitive streak flared up again. "If you can wear it, I can wear it." Alex just shook his head. Brandon took another selfie, documenting another moment of hardship, then admired his own picture. "Even in cheap clothes, I'm still sinfully handsome." "Yep." Alex rolled his eyes. The kid was about to toss his drenched, 5-figure outfit in the trash. Alex, who had grown up poor, couldn't stand the waste. He got a plastic bag from the shop owner and stuffed all their wet clothes inside. They could wash them back at the lodge and wear them again. It was summer vacation, and the tourist spot was crowded. As Alex was walking, he suddenly felt a pair of eyes on him. He whipped his head around and caught a glimpse of someone looking away in a panic, but not before their eyes met. "Alex, do you know them?" Brandon asked, following his gaze. Yeah, from high school, Alex said, nodding. He offered a small smile to the person standing a short distance away. Long time no see. It was strange. He was attending a local university, but his daily routine had somehow created a barrier, separating him from his past and his former classmates. Thinking back on those days felt like remembering another lifetime. Zach Johnson managed a polite, strained smile. Yeah, long time no see. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me when I saw you here. Their relationship had always been lukewarm at best, and their conflict over Lily Thompson hadn't helped. Exchanging a civil greeting was as good as it was going to get. After the brief exchange, Alex turned and walked away with Brandon. Zach watched him go, a complex, questioning look on his face. He never expected to run into Alex here. His last memory of Alex was of him donating $500,000 at the drop of a hat and his girlfriend gifting Jake Ramirez a Ferrari. The fact that Alex had landed a stunningly beautiful, wealthy girlfriend was a bitter pill he still couldn't swallow. She was just so gorgeous and so rich. To say he wasn't jealous would be a bald-faced lie. Even now, he hadn't gotten over it. They say you hate to see your friends struggle, but you also hate to see them succeed beyond your wildest dreams. And Alex wasn't even his friend, which just multiplied the resentment. He noticed that the clothes Alex was wearing were cheap, a stark contrast to the impeccably tailored outfits he used to wear. Zach's spirits lifted instantly. Did Alex get dumped by his rich girlfriend? Man, this weather is brutal. I'm dying of heat. We need to find somewhere fun tonight. A guy with an impatient look on his face said, walking over with a bottle of soda. He glanced in the direction Alex had gone. Hey, that guy you were just talking to. He kind of looked like Alex Turner. It was him, Zach confirmed. Seriously? The guy's interest was piqued. Was his rich heiress girlfriend with him? I gotta see what she looks like in person. This was Spencer Hayes, who had been their class president for all 3 years of high school. His family was well off, and he had spent the summer, after graduation, traveling the world. He had missed all the major drama, Lily Thompson's arrest, and the debut of Alex's mysterious, powerful girlfriend. All he cared about was whether this girlfriend was as rich and beautiful as everyone claimed. I don't know, Zach said as they started walking. He was with some kid. I didn't see any girls with him. They searched for a bit and finally spotted Alex in a less crowded area. Spencer squinted at the girl standing near Alex and scoffed. That's her? You guys have terrible taste. You call that beautiful? That's not her, Zach said flatly. So he's on a trip with other people instead of his girlfriend? What's up with that? Spencer mused. Zach voiced his suspicion. Maybe they broke up. Breakups were normal, especially when there was a huge disparity in wealth between the couple. They were both dying to know if Alex had been kicked to the curb by his heiress girlfriend. If he had, it would be cause for celebration among guys like them, who couldn't stand to see someone else succeed. But Zach had learned his lesson. He wouldn't risk provoking Alex until he was sure. Everyone knew what happened to Lily Thompson. If it weren't for Alex's girlfriend's ruthless methods, Lily wouldn't be spending the next 10 years in prison. Spencer's eyes darted around, and a plan began to form, a way to test the waters without getting himself into trouble. Aside from the surprise rainstorm, the day went smoothly. They wrapped up around 6 and headed back to the lodge. The trouble started just as they were leaving. You rotten bastard. I hope you die a horrible death. When the scream echoed through the area, no one, not even Alex, thought it was directed at them. They were in a different city, miles from home. He hadn't had a conflict with anyone. It was only when the name Alex Turner was carried clearly on the wind that he stopped in his tracks, stunned. The others exchanged confused, uneasy glances. Brandon looked back. Alex, you think it's just someone with the same name? Alex frowned. The voice sounded vaguely familiar. The furious curses grew closer. Alex Turner, you stop right there. You soulless bastard. You ruined my daughter's life. I'm going to kill you. The group watched in shock as a woman in her late 40s or early 50s ran toward them, her face contorted with rage, her hateful eyes locked on Alex. He knew who she was. Susan Thompson, Lily's mother. Lily had been a recognized beauty, and her mother had once been quite attractive as well. But in the short time since he'd last seen her, she seemed to have aged a decade. The bitterness in her expression, however, remained unchanged. In the days after Lily was sentenced, Mrs. Thompson had frantically searched for Alex and his family, only stopping when she found out they had moved. But her hatred for him hadn't faded with time. It had festered. In her mind, if Alex hadn't sent her daughter to prison, Lily would have had a brilliant future, and she would have reaped the benefits. Her daughter was the biggest investment of her life, and now that investment was gone, and so was her comfortable future. Every misfortune that befell her, her husband divorcing her because he couldn't stand her hysterics, getting fired from her job for a major mistake she refused to take responsibility for, she blamed on Alex. Now, going through menopause and hit with a double whammy of personal and professional disaster, she was a wreck, as volatile as a rabid dog. So when someone told her they knew where to find Alex Turner, she had come running. Mrs. Thompson continued to scream accusations as she approached, the gist of which was that Alex had ruined her daughter. To the uninformed onlookers and Alex's clubmates, it was easy to jump to certain conclusions. Did Alex have a messy personal life? Did he hurt this woman's daughter? But while they were shocked, they didn't immediately believe her. They all knew Alex had a girlfriend and that they were deeply in love. His girlfriend was beautiful and brilliant. They were a perfect match. It seemed unlikely that Alex would be involved with another girl. Alex, who is this psycho? Brandon asked, bewildered. She's the parent of a high school classmate, Alex said, then quickly added, and don't get any ideas. I never did anything to betray Sophia. Brandon looked offended. Alex, what are you talking about? I would never suspect you. If I can't even trust your character, then I don't deserve to call you my friend. Alex clapped him on the shoulder, gratefully. Just then, Mrs. Thompson reached him. She tore off her shoe and swung at his face. She moved so fast, skipping right past verbal threats to physical assault, that no one had time to react. There were gasps from the crowd. Brandon, though young, had lightning-fast reflexes. He shot out a foot and kicked Mrs. Thompson, sending her tumbling to the ground. Alex glanced into the crowd of onlookers and saw Arthur Lowe, who had been about to step in, but had frozen when Brandon acted. Alex gave him a subtle look, and Lowe nodded in understanding. Brandon's identity was a closely guarded secret. With social media and camera phones everywhere, a video of the incident could easily go viral. A clip of America's richest son getting into a physical altercation could be twisted and edited into a PR nightmare. Heir to fortune assault's grieving mother. Alex needed Lowe to make sure that didn't happen. Do you still think your daughter was innocent when she tried to extort her classmate? Alex asked, his voice cold. 10 years in prison is what she deserved. Or are you saying you feel so bad for her you want to go in and join her? With that parting shot, he grabbed Brandon, who looked ready to land another kick. Let's go. Brandon was fuming. Alex, she called you a kept man. Her mouth, her words, Alex said calmly. It doesn't affect my life in any way. Brandon stared at him for a few seconds, a look of awe spreading across his face. Alex, I want to be like you when I grow up. Alex blinked. What? No, I think you're misunderstanding something. He wasn't letting it go because he didn't care. He was letting it go because he didn't want to cause a bigger scene. That didn't mean he was going to let this crazy woman off the hook. My dad says you have a quality that's rare in young people, a calm composure in the face of honor or disgrace. Praise from one of the world's richest men brought a faint smile to Alex's face, though he remained unfazed. Thanks for your dad's compliment. He'd almost said Mr. Pierce, but even if he had, there were plenty of wealthy men with that name. Still, it was better to be careful. Alex didn't evade the issue. He explained to his clubmates, simply and clearly, what had happened between him and Lily Thompson after graduation. His honesty earned their support. That's it. Spencer Hayes, watching from a distance, was disappointed. Lily Thompson's mom was a terrible fighter. One kick, and all she could do was roll around on the ground wailing. So boring. What a waste of his time. So, Spencer, Zach asked, what's your verdict? Isn't it obvious? Spencer said confidently. Alex definitely got dumped by his girlfriend. Otherwise, you think he would have just stood there and taken it when that woman called him a kept man? Zach had a different take. I don't know. It seemed more like he couldn't be bothered to argue with her. But Spencer was convinced he was right. And Zach, more swayed by his own wishful thinking than by Spencer's logic, decided to agree. If Alex had been dumped by his heiress girlfriend, he could finally breathe a little easier. I've made a decision, Brandon announced later that evening. I can't eat that pig slop again tonight. I'm a growing boy. I need proper nutrition. Having found his justification, he became righteous. Not only was he refusing to eat the B&B's food, but he was forbidding Alex from eating it as well. But it felt wrong for just the two of them to eat out, and Simon was one of them too. In the end, Brandon waved his hand magnanimously and announced he was treating everyone, all the big brothers and sisters, to a nice dinner to thank them for looking after him. The others felt awkward letting a kid pay. So, the host of the dinner party officially became Brandon's big brother, and everyone cheered as they piled into the best restaurant nearby. As Alex took a picture of the food to send to Sophia, he frowned. That feeling of wrongness was getting stronger. He realized that Sophia hadn't initiated a single conversation with him all day. Too busy to have time? Impossible. In Sophia's world, he was the center. Nothing was more important than him. She would never neglect him for work. Alex fell into deep thought. Remembering her past transgressions, he couldn't help but suspect she was hiding something from him again. What was that maddening, wonderful girl up to this time? He couldn't take it anymore. He was about to call her to soothe the anxiety and longing in his heart when a hand clapped him on the shoulder. Hey, it really is Alex Turner. Spencer Hayes slapped him on the back familiarly. I didn't believe Zach when he said he saw you, but here you are. Alex gave him a brief glance and repeated the same lukewarm greeting he'd given Zach. Long time no see. He and Spencer had coexisted in high school without ever really interacting. But Alex disliked him. In fact, he loathed him. In his previous life, Spencer had been instrumental in spreading the vicious rumors Lily Thompson had started about him. Once, at an important business dinner, Spencer had loudly asked him to confirm if the rumors were true in front of both of their bosses. It was a humiliating experience, and only the intervention of his then-mentor had saved him. Afterward, Spencer had approached him, saying he looked pathetic and offering him a cushy job out of pity as a security guard at his family's company. Back then, Alex hadn't understood why Spencer had it out for him. They had no history. Later, he realized it was simply because his test scores had always been a few points higher than Spencer's. It was even more pathetic than Zach's petty jealousy. In this life, he'd had no interaction with Spencer, so he'd almost forgotten the man existed. He had been wondering how, of all the places in the world, he'd run into Lily's mother here. He had suspected Zach was behind it. The timing fit. But now, seeing Spencer, he knew he was wrong. Zach wasn't that clever. It had to be Spencer. But was Zach innocent? He was hanging out with Spencer. He was complicit. What Alex didn't understand was their motive. Just for entertainment? Then he caught Spencer subtly sizing up his cheap clothes, and it clicked. He scoffed internally. They were lucky he was laying low. At Lakeview University, everyone knew he was a powerful figure with connections to the Harlan family heirs. Simon had told him as much. But his old high school classmates didn't know that. They had gone to the trouble of bringing Lily's mother all the way from Seattle just to confirm something. They wanted to see if the little rich girl had dumped me, Alex thought. Even though his relationship status had absolutely nothing to do with them, it would bring them joy. There was a word for that, after all, schadenfreude. Spencer craned his neck, tried to look past him. I heard you got a girlfriend after graduation. Congrats, man. Is she here with you? Introduce us. There's no need for that. Was there something else? If not, I'm going inside. Before Spencer could react, Alex turned and walked away. A plan was already forming in his mind. Since Spencer had so graciously delivered himself to Alex's doorstep and reminded him of an old grudge, he might as well settle the score.